challenging Senator Ed Markey for his seat in 2026. Today, Congressman Moulton joins us to discuss his bid to replace the three-term junior senator and what, beyond a 33-year age gap between him and Markey, he'll campaign on. Plus, we'll get his thoughts on why Democrats don't like Democrats.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Meanwhile, around the country, the second round of No Kings demonstrations brought millions off their couches and into the streets. In Boston alone, more than 100,000 people showed up on Boston Common to protest authoritarianism for the Trump administration, among some 100 other protests all around the state and all around the country. We'll open phone and text lines. Did you make it to a protest? What do you want to see happen next? Weigh in at 11 o'clock hour at BPR, GBH, and NEPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump says he's cutting U.S. aid to Colombia and will impose new tariffs on the country. The president of Colombia says Trump administration attacks on boats in the Caribbean Sea recently amount to murder. NPR's Ada Peralta reports the Trump administration says it is attacking boats there to stop international drug trafficking.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said another strike had occurred on Friday and that boat belonged to a leftist Colombian guerrilla group. 3 were killed in that attack, and Colombia's president said what the U.S. blew up was a fishing vessel. I think the big picture here is that it has been decades since the U.S. military has taken this kind of posture in the Americas, so the region is tense.
NPR's Ada Peralta reporting. President Trump says the best way to end Russia's war on Ukraine is to carve up the eastern Ukrainian region of Donbas. Russia is currently occupying part of it, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that solution would not stop Russia from invading Ukraine again. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports from Kyiv.
Zelensky made the comments during a closed-door meeting with media that included NPR. He said the Kremlin has long insisted that Ukraine withdraw from 2 eastern regions, Donetsk and Luhansk, which are partly controlled by Russia. Zelensky said Russian President Vladimir Putin wants these regions to show that he has, quote, won this war, but that Russia will attack Ukraine again. Zelensky seemed to downplay reports that his meeting with Trump in Washington on Friday was unusually tense, adding that Ukraine shares Trump's, quote, positive outlook to end the war. However, Zelensky did say that Trump appears to be giving Putin another chance after weeks of criticizing the Kremlin. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
President Trump has suggested that San Francisco may be the next city to receive National Guard troops. From member station KQED, Sarah Hosseini has more.
Trump told Fox News he plans to send the National Guard to San Francisco next, and that he could use the Insurrection Act to do so, calling it unquestioned power. The rarely used law allows the president to deploy the military domestically in cases of unrest or rebellion. Legal expert Jessica Levinson of Loyola Law School in Los Angeles says that will likely trigger court scrutiny.
It would be a escalation of the president's ability to use the military on domestic soil, and that we really have not seen the Insurrection Act used in modern American history in the way that President Trump wants to use it.
The Insurrection Act hasn't been used in more than 30 years. For NPR News, I'm Sarah Hosseini in San Francisco.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Okay, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. I'm giving you that number because this is the 5th day of our pledge drive.
Fourth day of our
pledge drive.
It's only one day off, so it's not. It's a good start, though.
Good start.
It's better than the other day when you didn't even know we were doing a pledge. So I say you're way ahead of the game.
I'm ahead of the
game.
You
meant tomorrow's the 5th day.
Tomorrow.
So you meant.
Tomorrow's the 5th day. That's right. But
Friday was this 3rd day, by the way. I don't know if you're aware. Go ahead.
Well, let me get to the important stuff here.
Please.
What's important is the federal government under Donald Trump has shut down all funding for public television and public radio. So we are ever more dependent on the generosity of listeners like you guys. And it is indeed the 4th day, not the 5th day. But the point is, the money is short, and we have got a great, as I like to say, enticement today. One of the best ever. Rick Steves is one of our most soothing, uplifting guests. It's like going to hear a good sermon on a Sunday morning. This guy is great. Well, you have a chance for $12.50 a month to spend an evening with him. It will be virtual, but it will still be great, with a wine tasting. He's an expert on travel. Sit down with 6 small bottles of French wine delivered right to your house, enough for 2 people, and have a great time drinking that wine and listening to Rick Steves tell you stories about his trips to Europe and about wine. It's Thursday, February 26, 8 p.m. online, delivered to your house. 888-897-9424. gbhnews.org is the website where you can give securely. Rick Anyway, with 6 small bottles of French wine, what could be better? 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Houston Brady, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Unfortunately, we are still not back at the library yet. We won't be there tomorrow. I'm not sure about the rest of the week, but we won't be there tomorrow. We hope to get back there soon. Okay, hello again, Jim.
Hi there. And at the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk to you about the No Kings rallies all across the country, whether you think they will make a difference. What do you think of the media coverage? Some was great, some was virtually non-existent, even in legacy media places like the New York Times. We'll get to that at the bottom of the hour, but we're going to start the show with Congressman Seth Moulton. Last week, the Congressman announced he would challenge Democratic Senator Ed Markey in the primary next year. We've invited Senator Markey. We'll update you as soon as we have a date with him. But in the interim, Congressman Moulton joins us. He represents the 6th Massachusetts District. Good morning, Congressman. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you, too.
Well, Congressman, I know you were at the rally in Boston yesterday. What did you think? You think this is going to matter?
It absolutely matters. It matters because it shows how many people care about our democracy, care about the future of our country. And it shows that we've got a lot of volunteers who want to get out, get organized, and get involved in the midterms so that Democrats can win back some power in Washington and hold this administration more accountable.
Did you happen to see the video, the AI stuff that Trump put out, where he is flying a fighter jet with a crown on, and as he flies over the participants in the rally, huge amounts of feces, I guess I can say,
sewage,
for
excrement.
a better expression, are dropped on the ralliers. What did you think of that, Congressman?
I think that this is Trump acting like a child, like he normally does. I mean, you almost want to have sympathy for him because he obviously had no love as a child and has a really messed up mind. The fact that he thinks that this is an appropriate way to act as the president of the United States, as the leader of the free world, as a commander-in-chief, is just utterly pathetic. It's really sad.
We're going to talk to you about the shutdown, which is day 20, some foreign policy things. We want to know what you think about the new Secretary of War, as he calls himself. But first, obviously, the big news last week is you announced, as I said, you would be challenging Ed Markey, Senator Markey, in the Democratic primary next year. We've all seen the video, read the reports, but in your own words, why are you running, Congressman?
We can't wait another 6 years for new leadership in the Democratic Party. We need change now. The status quo isn't working. The old playbook has gotten us a second term of Donald Trump. And it's time to make room for a new generation of leaders in our party. So as someone who has always been willing to challenge the status quo, including my own party, when I disagree, I think now is the time to have that debate, to make some changes and show that we can have an agenda for the next 20 years.
If Ed Markey was 55 years old, because you went out of your way to say you had few disagreements with him, if Markey was, let's say, 55, for argument's sake, would you be running?
Jim, is this a trick question? Are you 55?
No. I was 55 about 45 years ago, Congressman. Seriously, if he were middle-aged.
I might well be right. I mean, look, this is not the only issue in this race. I might well be running, but I certainly wouldn't criticize him for being old. I think 55 is great. I'm not that far away from 55 myself. But the problem with running for Senate for a 6-year term when you're 80 years old is that means you're 86 in your final year in office. And we've seen what happened with Dianne Feinstein, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Joe Biden, all of whom looked great when we elected them. But that's just a risk. And more importantly, we have this real urgency for change. Like, we don't have a problem in 6 years with Trump. We've got a problem right now. And the status quo isn't working. Too many Democrats keep doing the same thing, and we keep losing elections. So let's allow a new generation to step up, to pass the torch, to show us how to fight Trump even harder than we are, but also to have a plan for the future. I don't think people look at Senator Markey and Senator Schumer, with all due respect for their long careers in public service, and say, okay, that's the future of the Democratic Party.
So we're going to get to in a minute what you think the Democrats should be doing differently. But when she completes her next term, should she run, Senator Warren will be 84 years old. So should she be challenged in 2028 for the same reasons you're challenging Ed Markey?
Look, to be honest, I think we should have a debate about whether there should be an age limit for members of Congress. And I'm not sure exactly what that age limit should be, but I'll tell you this. I think we should have that discussion. We should have that debate. And whatever we decide, I will try to pass it into law. And if that effort fails, I'll hold myself to that standard if I'm ever in that position.
So you'd support a constitutional amendment, which I think is what we would need, to have an age cap.
I think it would be wise. Yeah. I honestly do.
You didn't answer
I think
the Warren
if the framers saw, like, when they wrote the Constitution, they obviously had a lot of age limits. They were just for young people, right? But people didn't live that long. Mm-hmm. So this wasn't an issue.
But how about Warren? You didn't answer the Warren question. Applying the same standard you're applying to Ed Markey, is your position that she should be challenged? Should she run for re-election in 2028? She'll only be 2 years younger than Markey is now.
Sure, I think she should. I mean, I think that primaries are healthy for our democracy. You know, I got here by a primary. I challenged a 9-term incumbent in a primary back in 2014. And I really ran on the same platform, saying that we need a new generation of leadership in our party, in our country. And I think people feel that even more acutely today.
So you think Senator Warren should be primaried by a Democrat? That's what you're saying.
That for the third time, Marjorie, you really love getting me on the record.
I just want to make sure I understand you, Congressman.
I love Senator Warren. I think that she's great, but I'm not going to apply this standard unevenly. I'm just going to tell it like it is. You know, I mean, look, every political consultant will tell you that, Seth, don't talk about age. Like, oh, it might offend some people. It might, don't pin down any one person or whatever. I think voters want us to just be honest. You know, let's just be honest. Okay. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Senator Markey. He's a genuinely nice man. I love his wife. If we, see her out at, dinners at DC and everything, they're wonderful people. But I just think that we shouldn't have an 86-year-old junior senator. It's just too much risk.
So moving on, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Margaret.
So moving on, you said a couple of times, Congressman, that the old playbook isn't working. And frankly, I thought that myself every time I see Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer on TV. So what are the Democrats doing wrong? What should they be doing instead?
Well, first of all, I have pledged to not vote for Senator Schumer. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a big difference between myself and Senator Markey, is that I'm not going to support Senator Schumer for leader. I think we need new leadership at the top. I am a fan of Hakeem Jeffries. I know he's getting a lot of flack these days. You got to remember that his job is not to be the leader of the party. His job is to be the leader of our caucus in the House and keep everyone together. And he's doing a remarkably good job at that. I mean, I don't think we felt more united as a team in my entire time in Congress than we do right now under Hakeem Jeffries. But the broader issue here is that people look at our party and they say they're too old and they're out of touch. I mean, we lost 3 Democrats in the House just this past year. Hasn't even been a full year yet. In the past 10 months, 3 Democrats have died. We would have stopped the big, beautiful bill the first time it came up for a vote if one of my colleagues had just died a day later. And that's not responsible leadership.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about the? I assume most people know that you did a number of tours of duty, Congressman, and so I assume you have a particular experience perspective on the guy who now calls himself the Secretary of War. How would you rate? I don't know how many months it is now, 6, 7 months, whatever it is, of Pete Hegseth.
Well, I mean, if he were a student, he seems to be acting like a child, just like his boss in the Oval Office. If he were a student, I guess you could say, give him an F. But the honest truth is that if he did what he did as Secretary of Defense or War or whatever you want to call it, as a mere private in the military, he wouldn't even be in school. He'd be in prison. And that's how we have to keep this in perspective. I mean, his disclosure of classified information, highly classified information, the lives of pilots in his hands for that operation in the Middle East, would have landed any junior person in the military, the most junior person, in prison. And yet he is here trotting around a stage at Quantico, trying to act like a little prince and lecturing these accomplished 25-year-old career military officials who've dedicated their lives to serving the country, not to hosting the weekend show on Fox News. I mean, it's just, again, so pathetic. And I guarantee you that, I mean, I'm never going to speak for the generals, but let me tell you, those men and women, mostly men, because of course Trump is trying to kick out all the women, but them sitting in those seats in Quantico, listening to this gibberish from the Secretary of Defense and then the Commander-in-Chief, who got up there and just wandered and whined for 50 minutes, that does not increase the confidence of the troops. That does not increase the confidence of the troops at all. And it makes our adversaries look at us like we have totally lost the game plan here. Well, it's dangerous for our country.
He does seem to be a little overly obsessed with how much people weigh. He's constantly talking about fat troops all the time. I mean,
well, he's certainly. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Marjorie, but just to add to your point, he's certainly the first Secretary of Defense who's ever commissioned a makeup studio next to his office. So he's rather concerned about his own appearance.
Okay. By the way, that is really true for those who think the congressman is telling a joke. You know, Congressman, when you talked about the status quo is not we need new blood, etc. Probably the new blood that is being spoken about most in America right now is the guy who's the favorite to be the next mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani. Do you support his candidacy?
I mean, look, I think that he is raising some really important questions for the party and for the country. Like, he is focused on affordability in a way that I am on. If you look at my website, first thing you come to under my policy section is about affordability because it's an issue in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. But I do not agree with his solutions. I mean, the idea that he's going to have government-run grocery stores and he's going to make buses free that everyone who's ridden one of those buses in New York knows basically are already free anyway because no one pays the fare. I mean, the idea that that's somehow going to fix these problems is wrong, and I don't support that. We have a lot of policy disagreements between us, but I think because he's someone new and he's bringing attention to issues that other politicians are ignoring. And I think you see this across the country. I mean, sure, people like to talk about him. Trump likes to talk about him because he's a big foil for Donald Trump. But how about Mikey Sherrill running for governor down in New Jersey? She's one of my Serve America candidates that I recruited and supported in her first House race that flipped a seat back in 2018. And how about her compatriot, Abigail Spanberger, down in Virginia, former CIA officer, another person, Serve America candidate in 2018, a huge part of taking back the House. And she's running for governor of Virginia, kind of flip that seat. She's the favorite to win, and a Democrat is going to hold the governorship in Virginia. So I honestly think people like to focus on Zohran because he's in New York. But, you know, he says he's a democratic socialist. There are people who are just true blood Democrats who are running for higher offices like governor of Virginia, governor of New Jersey. They're amazing women. They're leaders that we should be inspired to follow. They have incredible histories of public service. They're very principled. They're tough fighters. I mean, those are the models that I'm looking to for the future of the Democratic Party.
But speaking about Spanberger in Virginia, just for a second, we've discussed this a decent amount. Democrats go out of their way, I think correctly, to criticize the violent, vulgar language of some Republican leaders. It came to light last week that the Democratic candidate for Attorney General in Virginia, the same state obviously Spanberger's running in, sent some text, apparently by mistake, to a Republican colleague, in which he suggested that 2 bullets should be shot into the head of the Republican Speaker of the House and some other grotesque, violent kind of imagery. Spanberger won't even answer a question. She says it's not the kind of language we should be embracing. She won't speak to the question about whether or not he should step down. How can Democrats be credible criticizing Republicans for violent language when they won't take on somebody in their own party?
Well, it sounds to me like she is taking him on.
She hasn't said he should pull out. Should he pull out?
Okay, but that's the thing. I'm not familiar. This is the first time I've heard about the situation, Jim, to be honest.
Okay.
But look, my take is that she's got really good judgment, and if this was it sounds like a vile thing to do. It shouldn't be done. I'm not sure that every time you make a mistake in life, you should quit doing what you're doing.
Congressman, you've taken...
I think Seth Moulton was talking to me when he was making that point.
Well, actually, I'm thinking about myself. I mean,
okay.
gosh, like how many times would I have quit this job for all the mistakes I've made over the years? My gosh.
Well, was one of those mistakes, you've taken a lot of criticism, Congressman, for your stand on trans athletes in school sports. So tell people what your position is on trans rights in general and trans athletes in sports.
Absolutely. Well, I fully support transgender people and their rights. And I have a 100% voting record on that in Congress. But I also think that we should be willing as a Democratic Party to talk about these tough issues. And there are too many people, fellow Democrats, who refuse to even discuss these issues. They're so concerned about backlash from special interest groups that as a result, the only people talking about these issues are Republicans. And while I certainly acknowledge that some people were hurt by the words that I chose, my intent wasn't to hurt anybody. It was to actually have these difficult conversations, because the people who are really going to get hurt if we can't take on these issues are transgender people and other minorities. If Republicans set the agenda, as they're doing right now in Congress today, then the trans community and other minorities are the ultimate victims. And I don't think we can let that continue.
Do you think supporting trans athletes in high school and college sports hurts Democrats?
I just think that we should have a discussion about what the regulations should be. And too many Democrats say, nope, can't even talk about it, off the table. And that doesn't seem right. Right? That just doesn't kind of meet the common sense test. And by the way, I've heard this view from a lot of transgender people, so there are certainly people who are angry at me, but there are also a lot of transgender people who come up to me and said, Seth, you're right. Like, we should take on these issues. The Olympics has regulations. I don't think people are out to, ban the Olympics. And look, there has to be, I don't know what the right answer should be. I'm just the one willing to start this discussion. But there's obvious things that, like, my kids play, sport, boys and girls, like, they're young, right? I mean, I played boys and girls soccer, right? And then at the competitive upper levels, though, again, like the Olympics has rules. So, like, somewhere in the line there, especially, one of the things I hear from parents a lot is they're just concerned about the fairness when their children are competing against others, because in high school, this sports performance has an influence on college applications. So I don't know what the right answer is, but let's have this discussion, and let's not let the Republicans drive the debate and settle it on their terms, which, especially under Donald Trump, are really hateful. I mean, they're not only trying to have no transgender people whatsoever in any sport, even for little kids, but they're also trying to take away their health care. They're trying to take away their basic rights to hold on to a job and not get fired for who they are. I mean, these are fundamental human rights that we need to protect. And we're not very good at doing that if we can't engage in this discussion.
We're talking to Seth Moulton. You're listening to BPR. Time for a pledge break, but just...
Okay, that number again, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Today we have a really great gift. Jim and I did this once. We hosted this virtual wine tasting. This time the virtual wine tasting is with Rick Steves. Uplifted, so grateful for everything we have. I mean, he's a real mood changer and
a great storyteller.
And a great storyteller in these dark times. I would sign up for this immediately. But it's not just Rick Steves, although talking to him for half an hour would be enough for me. You also get 6 small bottles of French wine, enough for 2 people, shipped to your door. This is February 26, 8 p.m., a Thursday, right in your house, so you can drink as much wine as you want and not worry about having to drive anywhere. You're already right at your kitchen table. This would be a great event. A virtual wine tasting, $12.50 a month with Rick Steves, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Also, when Marjorie said I could talk to him for 30 minutes anytime, we talked to him for 30 minutes. This thing goes on much longer than 30 minutes.
That's right.
And you learn a lot about the wine. Steve regales you with these fabulous stories. And by the way, if you're not into this, give it to somebody. What a fabulous gift for
Christmas
$150.
gift.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Maybe
Thank
I'll
you, Jim.
actually do that. Maybe I'll give you the gift.
Solve all your Christmas giving problems.
Instead of a sausage of the month, do you think you could give me something useful? No, actually, it doesn't get more useful than a sausage of the month. So in any case, that's the deal. $12.50 a month, $150 all at once for a fabulous gift kind of thing. And you call 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And let me state the obvious. We used to say to you all the time, we only get a small percentage of our funding from the federal government. Well, we even get a smaller percentage of our funding now, namely zero. As you know, since this rescission with Trump cutting USAID and public broadcasting and that sort of thing. So it's a great time to give, and it's also a great time to get something fabulous in return beyond what you get from our colleagues here on the radio. Is this fabulous evening with Rick Steves, Thursday, February 26th at 8 p.m.
Okay, here is one of my favorite things to read the very flattering, nice comments people send when they donate. Elsa in South Hamilton, Jim and Marjorie, we listen to your program every day and love you. Karen in Belmont, public news is crucial to democracy. Abby in Millis, love BPR. Kathy in Walpole, keep doing the great job informing the public of what's really going on. Much appreciated. Rumi in Nashua, whether it's healthy for me or not, I feel the need to keep up to date with what's going on in the world. It's so helpful to know that there are other people in this country who want good for others, no matter how different they are from us. I feel that connection, Rumi says, with Jim and Marjorie. Isn't that uplifting?
It really is
and
nice,
wait,
actually.
don't tell me. Thank you very much. Okay, so there are a lot of other comments. I'll save the rest of them
Boston
to read.
Public Radio and wait, don't tell me. That's an interesting combo, don't you think?
Well, you can quiz yourself on the news of the week and see if you have been paying attention.
Humor in
it's very
difficult
funny.
times.
Stephen in Framingham,
funny too,
were
sort
you?
of what I meant,
We are.
whatever,
Sorry to interrupt there, Jim.
It's okay.
Stephen from Framingham, we're huge fans of Jim and Marjorie's Daily Conversation. It's likely they're on it's like they're on a comedy show. So there you go. So keep your humor up, Jim. It's not easy.
Do my best.
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Paquin Entertainment Group, presenting Moonwalkers, a 360-degree immersive experience narrated by Tom Hanks, featuring NASA footage, astronaut interviews, and more. Now open. Tickets at moonwalkersboston.com. And Speakeasy Stage, presenting Lizard Boy, the genre-blending coming-of-age indie rock musical about monsters, love, and becoming your own hero. October 24th through November 22nd, speakeasystage.com.
A growing network of top colleges is working to recruit more rural students, an effort they hope can help bridge cultural divides.
Serving the entire United States, not just the big cities, is really important.
Bringing students together from these dramatically different backgrounds, giving them a chance to talk to each other.
I'm Kirk Carapezza. That story later today on GBH's All Things Considered.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. We're streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Not at the library, at least tomorrow. We'll let you know more about the rest of the week. A little later in the week, Mayor Wu will join us a week from tomorrow, noon to 1, at the library, we hope. Across the country this weekend, you all know this, millions took to the streets and city commons to rally against the Trump administration in hundreds of demonstrations under the umbrella No Kings. Second set of rallies this year with the same theme, nobody is above the law. including Donald Trump. In Boston and New York City, organizers estimated 100,000 people plus showed up to each event. But on the front page of the New York Times Sunday, there were two little tiny photographs that referred you to page 23.
Oh, I was incensed.
Page 23. Some other places did a hell of a lot better. We want to open up the conversation to you. Trump, I think it's fairly clear when they talked about, hate rallies and anti-American rallies, was not pleased that there was this mass nonviolent protest, but that's what it was. Many who showed up believed they were reclaiming patriotism, waving American flags, holding on to foundational concepts of American democracy. What do you make of the weekend's massive mobilizations? Did it lay a foundation for more? Will it matter? Seth Moulton thought the answer was yes. And did much of the media, this is legacy media, I'm not talking about Fox News, we know what they're going to fail on this. Did legacy media, at least some of it, fail the American people in their coverage? The number is 877-301-8970. So I thought of you Sunday morning when I saw the New York Times coverage. Were you ready to have a stroke?
I was ready to have a stroke. I mean,
Marjorie's holding the front page of the Sunday Times right now.
Yeah, I'm old school on Sunday. I get the Globe and the Herald, not the Herald, the Globe and the New York Times delivered at home. And they had a huge story about Syrians that were in prison. And that's obviously worthy news, but it was the whole top of the paper. Then underneath it, they had a 2 by 2 inch, I would say, maybe 2.5 inches photograph of this massive rally. And as you said, they referred people to read about it on page 23. 7 million people don't get out and do the same thing often on the same day. Some people have it as high as 8 million people. And the Boston Globe, the whole town, how many times do you have 100,000 people at least down in Boston Common? It is a big deal. And to bury that the way they did.
They didn't bury it online, but I don't read the hard copy of the Globe. Well, I read it online. Online, it was
but this is the kind
nonstop stories and photos. I thought they did a good job.
Is the kind of day where you might run out to your 7-Eleven and buy the newspaper because you wanted to see that coverage if you were at that rally in Boston or anywhere in Massachusetts. Same thing for the Times. What a blown opportunity for these two organizations. Yeah, it was great online, but you wanted to see the front page of the papers doing to do justice to what happened.
CNN did a fabulous job, by the way. I told you, I texted you were at the rally.
All visual, right?
Well, I understand that, but they did a spectacular job. And you know what's interesting? Whenever they wanted to show the audience that there were mass turnouts, almost without exception, they switched to the overhead shots of Boston. That's how big the Boston turnout was.
I was there with some friends. It was packed. They had a lot of great signs. And, they had these action tables, and that was a great thing to get people to go out and register to vote if they hadn't got registered to vote.
As follow-up stuff.
As follow-up stuff, informing them of other areas where they could, get involved, take a picture of this with your phone, and you can go on and email, blah, 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 blah. So they did a lot of follow-up. I do have a lot of criticisms of the rally, though. And they had too many politicians. You couldn't hear them. It's very frustrating to be at a rally when you can't hear the people that are talking. Rawson Hall has got a big voice. You could hear him a lot of the time. You could hear some of Wu, but there are too many politicians. Not enough. I'll give this to Trump. You know what he does at his rallies? He plays great music.
You're listening to BPR. Time for a pledge break, but just here on GBH. 877-301-8970.
The number again, 888-897-9424, or you can give securely online at gbhnews.org. As you know by now, we used to get about 7% of our funding from the federal government. Trump has shut that down. Not a fan of public broadcasting and public radio, so that money is gone. So now we are 100% dependent on the generosity of listeners like you and private donations from people that can give bigger private donations. But we are not proud. We'll take any donation you can give. This day, though, what's the date? Today, 4th, day 5?
20th. 4th.
Yeah, I think it's the 4th day.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a really great gift. This is a virtual wine tasting where you get 6 small bottles of this really great French wine, enough for 2 people, shipped to your door. So you sit there at your kitchen table or your dining room table, wherever you are, with the 6 small glasses of wine, pour them into your glasses, and you talk about wine and the countries they're from with Rick Steves, the guy that we talk to. What do we talk to him? Once every month or two?
Once a month, yeah.
And he is so uplifting.
The guy we talk to once. The most famous travel writer and TV and radio travel guy in the world.
Wonderful man. You're so uplifted by the end of talking to him about his adventures, talking with regular, everyday Jane and Jones in countries all over the world. Europe, Southeast Asia, South America. I mean, he goes everywhere, and he talks about all these things. Anyway, that's the deal. It's February 26th at 8 p.m., Thursday night, and you don't have to worry about how much you drink because you're in your house. The other thing is, you could give this as a Christmas present, right?
Yeah, the other thing is the wine is really good. We did this one night.
It's great
Not
wine.
quite the draw that Rick is, but the wine was really spectacular.
And they're little bottles. They're pretty little bottles. You can stay at them afterwards for like a little bulb, just like a one-stem flower kind of deal for a flower vase. Anyway, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And by the way, each of these bottles, Marjorie says little, they are smaller than a full wine bottle, but they're enough. Each of them is enough for two people.
Oh, yeah.
And there's 6 bottles, so that's a lot of wine in there.
Two glasses.
If you can't drink it. And they explain
2 glasses in each bottle.
They explain the whole deal, they talk about the wine and all that sort of thing. And so, this is really an event not to be missed. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And one of the great things about him being a great storyteller, you sort of feel, which is an art, that when he's talking to you, he's only talking to you. And that very few people have that skill.
Yeah.
And I think you'll feel that also during this wine thing with Rick on Thursday, February 26th at 8 p.m. So 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. I would say this is right at the top of the pantheon of good enticements, as you call it, to make contribution. It doesn't get much better than this.
We do have the new improved Eton Crank radio, now
that's
called
not
the
today.
Odyssey radio with an SOS and a battery.
Yeah, it's not
That's
today.
good. But this is just kind of a very soulful evening with him, quietly
Also,
in the
if he
kitchen.
says something you don't like, you just hit the SOS button. And then, so it's like you can get the crank thing and you get the 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Rockland Trust Bank, helping foster healthy relationships with money by providing education and resources to the community, one neighborhood at a time. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. And Minus 33 Merino Wool in Ashland, New Hampshire. Since 1916, makers of all-natural merino wool underwear, outerwear, and New Hampshire-made socks. Their merino wool clothing and accessories are available at minus33.com.
Vaccine exemptions are at an all-time high in Massachusetts schools. At the same time, cases of measles and whooping cough are spreading across the country. In our series Unraveling Immunity, we explore what's going on with our vaccines, from religious exemptions to hesitancy, and how it affects your family. Unraveling Immunity, online at gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder is streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Not at the library tomorrow. Hope to return soon, at least a week from tomorrow when Mayor Wu joins us from noon to 1 at the library. We're just doing a follow-up, a check-in about Saturday's massive rallies across the country, the press coverage, whether or not you think it'll matter, what follow-up in your life. What do you plan to do? Forget the organizers. What do you plan to do as a follow-up to yesterday? Let's start with Stan, I believe, in Concord. Welcome to the show, Stan. Hi.
Oh, thank you for taking the call.
Of course.
This is, yes, I was part of the organizing team for a group that was at the Old North Bridge, where, as you know,
Concord.
that's where the...
Yeah.
Yeah, Concord.
Jimmy Tingle was there, I heard.
Jimmy Tingle was the MC and producer.
Oh, that's great.
So we were punchy, and he opened with the Star Spangled Banner on the harmonica where everybody sang along.
Oh, we did? Oh, that is fabulous.
that would
One of
have
the
been
truly
great.
decent, wonderful souls on the planet,
We
by
could
the
have
way.
used that in Boston.
That is great. What was your turnout like? What was your turnout like, Stan?
We had over 2,000, and
great.
we were on federal land during the shutdown, so we had to be a bit creative about that.
It's great.
And so we had great speakers, including Carol Rose, Ambassador Rufus Gifford.
Terrific.
And we had the Substack superstar, this guy, Robert Hubble, who, if people aren't reading him yet, they should be, because they give you the news you can use.
That's great.
And it's the same problem you're complaining about, which is, that the news media is failing us.
Hey, Stan, before you go, because we have a lot of calls, what are you doing next in your neck of the woods out there? What's the follow-up?
Well, we're rallying people to support Down Home North Carolina, which is an organization that is now canvassing municipal elections in preparation for 2026. And then I'm getting, and it was announced at our rally, people are showing up at the detention center in Burlington.
That's great.
And they've been really, really doing great out there. And now the town of Burlington has passed a town meeting resolution that condemns the cruelty at the detention center, and also instructs their building and zoning inspectors to go inspect the facility because they don't believe they're in compliance.
Hey, Stan, we got to go. Congratulations. Keep at it and stay in touch with us. It's really good to hear. Appreciate it.
Here's a texter. I went to the Boston rally, so proud to be there, brought my son and a few friends. My joke is that if George Soros were really paying for these things, there would be a much better sound system. But I would do it again in a heartbeat and encourage anyone who missed a rally this time, don't miss the next one.
Can we play a little sound from Trump here?
Absolutely.
This is one of the thoughtful things. The Republican Party. Here he is on Air Force One this weekend responding to questions from reporters about the demonstrations.
What's your response to the protests over the weekend, the No Kings protests?
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. And I looked at all the brand new signs paid for, I guess it was paid for by Soros and other radical left lunatics. Demonstrations were very small, very ineffective, and the people were whacked out.
Hi, San Francisco.
I'm not a king. I'm not a king. I work my ass off to make our country great. That's all it is.
It doesn't require a comment. The best sound I heard, and I hope this
still there.
I hope this is real, but it's so funny. I felt we had to play it. Here's a young protester at a No Kings rally in Denver, speaking to, I guess it's 710 KNUS reporter Jeff Hunt. Listen to this kid.
Trump's a bitch.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know. We don't like him. That's the word around here.
Any particular reason why you don't like him?
No clue at all. I'm just going with everybody else saying.
Sorry, I thought it was maybe the funniest thing.
He's on top of his game.
He is. Let's go to Patty. She's in South Carolina.
Hi, Patty.
Thanks so much for your call. Hi.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
Well, South Carolina gives you an idea of what my environment is like.
Yes.
But not all of it. So what I wanted to say was your comments about being disappointed with the paper burying the story on a page. At least my feeling was at least they covered it. And the small group I went to was not as large as 2 other towns near here that got covered. And it didn't bother me because I tell people, and I know some people who wouldn't watch the news, would turn it off if they saw news about the rallies, the protests. But I just feel like it's okay. At least they covered. Everybody has their opinion, and I'm not trying to disagree with you, but I just want you to know that the way it got out, Trump and people in Washington can't say, "Oh, look at the papers. There they go again. It's all over the front page," and you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. That's fine. I mean, just maybe because I'm a newspaper person, I thought that they could have done a better job with such a big deal. But I get your point too, Patty, and I'm glad they had a big outpouring in South Carolina because you're a red state down there, are you not?
Oh, yeah. Tim Scott, Lindsey Graham, and Nancy Mace. And I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. I'm just saying they surprise me so often that I just can't. I have to lift my jaw off the ground.
Patty,
well,
thanks.
Thank you for
Appreciate
listening
the call.
to us.
Thanks so much.
From South Carolina. We should also mention that remember what day where Carolyn Levitt was talking about this? There was all a bunch of Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, violent criminals. I mean, you looked around Boston Common yesterday. Like I said, it was very white. There were not many people with brown skin or black skin there. I don't know. I don't know what a Hamas terrorist looks like. I think of them with guns and masks. Didn't see any of them, Jim, or violent criminals either. And I certainly didn't see any pro-Hamas signs. It was mostly people with pro-democracy signs. I saw a big Dogs for Democracy sign. I like that one, too. A lot of people have their dogs there with them with signage. That was great.
You know, when you would quote Levitt, the only reason I didn't bring that up is because it so aggravated me. I couldn't see straight.
Well, that's what
I should be immune to this now.
Too. Mike
I know,
saying
and I can't do that either. I mean, I hear Carolyn Levitt. This is an adult who is the spokesperson for the President of the United States. Hamas terrorists. What are the other descriptions?
Illegal aliens and violent criminals. It's the Hate America rally. I would argue that the Hate Americans rally was organized by the president himself, who posted that meme of him flying the jet. He hopes he could be a pilot of a jet plane and dropping excrement on the protesters. That would be the I Hate Americans moment, and that was
the
Donald
only
Trump.
Good news from the Trump camp, I would say, this weekend, and it's fabulous news, I know you agree, is George Santos will be leading the effort on prison reform. Because I have to say, if I could pick one person to say, this is the man who needs to lead the effort to reform our prisons, it's George Santos, the greatest volleyball player arguably ever lived.
George Soros, I believe his sentence was 7 years, and he got out in, 84 days? Is that how much time?
80-something, yeah.
How much time he served. Yeah. What message is the president sending there? I'm not sure.
Well, so all his fines wiped out to the people he defrauded and all that sort of stuff.
All the money he took for people for his Botox treatments. I think if you're getting Botox, you should probably pay for it yourself.
Edward in Falmouth, you are next on BPR. Hi.
Hi, thank you.
Sure.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
We really appreciate that. Thank you.
I do. I as well. But the problem is that you guys are like legacy media here. Kids don't listen to this stuff. They look to the the other stuff, and unfortunately, there's no sort of better idea to come up with it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I
was on Twitter, which pretty much, as much as I was watching CNN, and there was actually fabulous video, fabulous photographs. Obviously, there's this crap that Carolyn Levitt crap and Trump crap, but I thought there was a lot of really useful, accurate description of how important the day was.
Unfortunately,
I'm sorry, go ahead. Edward, go ahead.
No, I have to, my first-hand experience of being in Falmouth, where we had, probably 2,000 people at the town green and everything.
That's great.
Great.
There was not one young person in the group. What is going on?
Well, I think it depends where you were, Edward. Look at the ones in New York. Look at the ones they're saying that people there weren't that many young people at the Boston protest. I saw plenty of young people. But the reason that the legacy media coverage of this matters, Edward, is where the biggest voters are. They're old people. So you obviously want to get kids involved as well. But I think it matters.
I also don't think it's fair. I mean, I watched CNN throughout this thing, so I'd get a sense of all the major demonstrations around the country. There were zillions of young people. I mean, I don't know what the share is, but it was a pretty decent cross-section.
Well, it depends on where you went, obviously.
Oh, I assume so.
But
Edward, thanks for your first call. Make another one.
I think, having been there yesterday, it wasn't yesterday, it was Saturday in Boston, that it was not, there were quite a few people with gray hair, but there were quite a few people who were young. What struck me, like I've said a million times, is there were very few people of color there.
Could you do me a favor? I usually don't read these, but we played that sound from that kid, and an anonymous texter, anonymous being the key word, over 50% of the idiots of the rally were like that kid, Jim. Can I make a suggestion to you, texter? Why don't you call the phone number right now at 877-301-8970 and tell our call screener that you're the person, you're the anonymous texter, and we'll take you out of order so we could find out from you what that ridiculous insulting comment from you was based upon. So please call us.
Every third person had a sign. People were pretty engaged. We had a lot of the inflatables there, too. I was happy to see.
I love that.
The inflatable unicorns, inflatable frogs, a lot of American flags. They were giving out American flags. And they had this huge, I don't know how they did it, where it's like this one huge pole with about 15 American flags wrapped around it, so it would fly, and they'd all be flying at once, which I thought was pretty cool.
Wendy in New York, hi.
Hello.
Hello to you.
I was at a safety marshal at a rally in Albany organized by Indivisible.
Okay.
We covered 2.7 miles, both sides of the street. But what I wanted to say was, in 2002. A rally I went to in Washington, D.C., trying to stop the invasion of Iraq. It was the biggest, I think, pre-war rally ever. And I ran out and bought the New York Times on the way home, and there was nothing. The cover story was marketing Elvis Presley, and buried deep in the paper was a little tiny paragraph about this rally that I think it was over 100,000. It was record-setting, pre-war, trying to stop a war before it happened.
I think there's an aversion. I don't know what it's about. Maybe we'll get Brian McGrory next time on. We should write about it, Wendy. But I think there seems to be an aversion of giving big coverage to protests.
Well, except can I tell you something? When I was in the protest business, when I was doing my tax reform work and some union work, there was an aversion in the mainstream press. But in more recent times, if you have 100 people at a rally, they'll generally cover it pretty well, newspaper as well. I don't understand.
100 people at a rally?
Yeah, a local thing about a local issue. Yeah, it gets decent play in local newspapers, regional papers like the Boston Globe. I would love to hear what the New York Times responds to what Margaret Sullivan and you had to say.
They're going to take a lot of heat today.
Yeah.
I have no doubt.
And by the way, the other thing Margaret Sullivan, and Wendy, thank you for your call. We appreciate it. The other thing that Margaret Sullivan said was not only the point that you made, Sunday New York Times, two little pictures below the fold on page one, then the story you had to go to page 23 to get to. She mentioned in the first paragraph of a story about millions of people demonstrating, they have Trump's quote, or the administration quote.
Yeah.
And of course they shove the Trump response in the story. But when you turn out that many people in one day with the message there was, that's not the place for that. So I'm sort of shocked.
A texter makes a great point that if you walk into a gas station or 7-Eleven or someplace, you see the newspapers. They still sell the newspapers. And what do you see? You see the front page of the newspaper. Yeah. If it's a tabloid, that's all you see is the front page of the newspaper. And that's the way to reach all these other people that aren't going to buy the newspaper, is to see those front pages. So that is a great point, texter. Thank you.
You know what the other
much.
Point is? Correct me if I'm wrong about Margaret Sullivan. I don't have it right in front of me. Mm-hmm. She also, and I did this too for the exact same reason she did. I went to the CBS News website. I did not watch CBS News. Barry Weiss is now in charge, as we know, has no experience doing that kind of thing or being a frontline journalist. There was very little coverage there too of the rally. I don't know what CBS News, in terms of its on-air coverage, was like, but its online coverage was very minimal.
60 Minutes, by the way, sort of the big show on CBS News, was like a 50-50 thing. The first part of the show was Leslie Stahl interviewing Jared Kushner.
Oh, and Witkoff. How was that? I didn't see that.
Very flattering to them both. And I mean, you got to give, I mean, we'll see how long this lasts with Israel and Gaza. We hope it lasts. But I would give Trump a lot of credit for bullying Netanyahu into doing something there. But the second half was about the lawyer who was fired by the Justice Department.
Oh, yeah.
He was great. And the reason he was fired by the Justice Department is he refused to go into court and lie about Obregón Garcia, the man that was sent to El Salvador mistakenly. He wouldn't lie about it. And because he wouldn't lie about it, I mean, this is what we've come to.
He was the one that actually told the truth in court, wasn't he? That it was a mistake. Isn't he the one that said that? You're right, yeah.
And he got fired.
Okay.
So there you go.
877-301-8970. Andy in Sudbury. Hi, Andy. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I don't have to say I love your show because I've actually been on it several times before, so you know I still love it.
Well, we'd like you to keep saying it every time,
Andy.
actually, but thank you.
You're welcome. I'm 75 years old. I've been a criminal defense lawyer and a civil rights lawyer for 44 years, and I'm still practicing.
Great.
I was in the protests against the Vietnam War in my college days. Brandeis was a strike coordinating center for all of New England at that point. The only way we were able to bring that war down finally after years and years was getting out into the streets and marching in large numbers and demonstrating and protesting. When Nixon sent a bunch of people into chase Viet Cong into Cambodia, he declared it the most significant invasion since D-Day. It actually triggered the nationwide strike of students. It's the students who are involved today. And I'm very concerned about this because I have never been more scared in my life, and I voted in every single election since the time I was 18. And I'm more scared about the destruction of democracy now than I ever have been. And the problem is the same students who are going to basically face all the consequences of all this destruction of everything that's going on in our world around us, with all of our rights being trampled on and destroyed and no democracy left. They should be out there in the streets. They should be out there protesting. It's their world that we need to protect, not ours, because I'm old enough to say, I'll live through this okay and I'll be okay. But the next generation has a great deal to do. But they're busy on their cell phones and their chat groups and their what do you call it, the echo chambers and stuff, and not getting out there. And why? Because they're pissed off because some of the people they would have liked to see in office aren't running.
Well, Andy, I have to say, Andy, I hear you, and I respect that your lifetime of activism. But again, I want to hear more. I got to survey all of them because I was watching CNN for 5-6 hours on Saturday, and I don't think there was the dearth of young people that a lot of you are suggesting, but we'll see. Andy, thanks for your call. We appreciate
One of the
calls again.
texters says it was like Woodstock on the Common. The people who were at Woodstock.
People who were at Woodstock?
Yeah, 50 years ago.
That's pretty funny.
They came in, they walked in hesitantly, but they got there.
You're listening to BPR. 1 second, a time for a pledge break just here on GBH.
Boston Public Radio today was made possible by our listener contributors and local businesses, and that support is the only way to keep Boston Public Radio on the radio. So please do your part during our fall membership drive online at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424. I'm Maeve Buckley, and I'm joined by Mark Cohen.
And this is our fall membership drive. We thank you if you've already made a contribution. If not, we are looking to hear from 8 more folks in this hour, 8 contributions in these final 5 minutes of the hour. Take a couple of minutes, reflect on all the listening you've done with Jim and Marjorie, if they're your midday companions. Put a value on that and give as generously as you can. There is no gift too small or too large that will make a huge difference. So 8 contributions in about the next 4 minutes. Join us at 888-897-9424 online, gbhnews.org.
And NPR and GBH exist because of listener support. And your support has never been more important since we lost our federal funding. That money was appropriated to fund public media through fiscal year 2027, and now it's gone for good. So the only way to secure our future is by getting as many people as possible to support the station. Please meet us in this moment by starting a sustaining membership, increasing your monthly gift by a few dollars, or making an additional gift. Every bit helps and makes a huge difference. 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
We say it all the time. The giving really easy to do. It just takes a couple of minutes of your time. We need your name, some contact information, that amount you'd like to give, and how you'd like to pay. We do encourage you to consider becoming a sustaining member of WGBH. Really the best way to support all the news and entertainment that you hear. You can make a one-time gift as well. Doesn't matter. Whatever works for you will work for us. But the important thing is to participate, take an active stand, vote for GBH right now with your support. Online at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
And we have a very special way of saying thank you for your support here on this only Monday of our fall membership drive. When you support GBH right now with a gift of $12.50 per month, we can say thank you with a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves and a professional sommelier. This is a special offer during this membership drive. You'll receive 6 small bottles of wine, plenty for 2 people to share, and they'll be shipped right to your door. And the tasting's going to be on Thursday, February 26th, beginning at 8 o'clock in the evening, online and in your home. So do not miss this evening of discovery and delight, where you're sure to learn something new about the wonderful world of French wine and more about Rick and his adventures as well. So sign up as a sustaining member. Again, that's $12.50 per month, supporting all your listening here to Boston Public Radio and all the programs you enjoy here on GBH. Or you could give $150 all at once. Either way, you are supporting your listening. 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Thousands of websites, dozens of radio stations, and dozens of TV stations all compete for your attention every day. And of all those choices, you're choosing GBH. You choose us for NPR News. You're choosing us for intelligent discussion programs. You choose us for smart entertainment. GBH is worthy of your attention. Well, that makes us worthy of your support. So please become a new sustaining member. Just $5 or $10 a month is all it takes. When you find us online, look for the donate button at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
Hey, thank you so much to Bonnie in Cambridge for making your gift of support. Also to Joyce in West Roxbury, one of our newest members, and Sharon in West Newbury. Thank you for making your gift of support. And also thanks to a friend in Beverly. We're down to just 4 more people to go to wrap up this hour. We can do it, but we need to hear from you. If you have yet to give, now is the perfect time. Please join with others. Giving right now is going to help us reach that goal. 888-897-9424 or online at gbhnews.org.
And a quick reminder, a lot of folks taking advantage of this wine tasting with Rick Steves. It's an online virtual event coming up on February 26th. We'll send you 6 bottles of wine, plenty for 2 people, and you'll hear all about Rick's travels and all about French wine. A great opportunity for that, and to join us at 888-897-9424, $12.50 a month, gbhnews.org.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of BPR. When the weather gets cold, there are few better places to cozy up than right in front of the TV. To help us in our lounging, we'll check in with NPR's Eric Deggans about the best shows out now, from The Diplomat on Netflix to a brand new limited series about John Wayne Gacy that, for a change, isn't trying to glamorize a serial killer. Plus, he argues late night might be back.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then is former Massachusetts Education Secretary Paul Reville on what comes after MCAS. Surprise? Nothing yet. And on day 20 of the government shutdown, the latest horrors Linda A1 McMahon has in store for the Department of Education. That's all in the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. U.S. envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are in Israel. The visit coming after an outburst of fighting in Gaza over the weekend threatened to derail the ceasefire. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Tel Aviv.
Israel says Hamas opened fire at troops Sunday, killing 2 soldiers. Israel responded with a wave of strikes, killing at least 46 Palestinians, according to Gaza hospital officials. President Trump said it appeared to be a rebel group within Hamas that launched the attacks. Israel said it would halt aid shipments to Gaza, but Israel quickly reversed course after the U.S. intervened, telling Israel and mediating countries not to harm the ceasefire and to continue aid to Gaza. That's according to a person briefed on the matter, not authorized to speak publicly. U.S. envoys Witkoff and Kushner are visiting Israel, and Vice President J.D. Vance is also expected to visit this week to negotiate the next steps in the ceasefire. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The federal government shutdown heads into its 4th week with no serious negotiations on a way to end it. NPR's Deirdre Walsh reports the Trump administration's moves to keep federal programs going is prolonging the stalemate.
The Senate will vote for an 11th time tonight on a bill that funds federal agencies through November 21st. Democrats are expected to block it, insisting any deal to reopen the government must address expiring health care subsidies. The Trump administration moved money around to pay the military and tapped tariff revenue to keep a nutrition program going. Virginia Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw supports paying the troops, but says this strategy isn't sustainable.
Every day that the shutdown continues, it's harder for the administration to try to play whack-a-mole and mitigate impacts.
Until the consequences of the shutdown are more widely felt by the public, there's less pressure on Congress to end it. Deirdre Walsh, NPR News.
President Trump says he's withholding all U.S. subsidies to Colombia and plans to impose new tariffs on the South American country. This after the president of Colombia said U.S. strikes on boats from Venezuela amount to murder. Washington argues it's targeting drug traffickers. NPR's Ada Peralta has more on the fallout of the diplomatic clashes in the Caribbean waters.
These strikes, they've happened in the open waters. So a lot of what we know comes from the U.S. And what they're saying is they've struck at least 7 vessels, which they allege were loaded with drugs coming to the U.S. Last week, U.S. forces attacked a semi-submersible. A U.S. official told NPR that it appeared to be headed toward Europe. 2 were killed and 2 were taken into custody in that incident.
That's NPR's Ada Peralta reporting. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up more than 350 points at last check, or roughly 0.75%. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Today is the deadline for 9 colleges to decide whether they'll join the Trump administration's proposed compact for academic excellence in higher education. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk reports that so far, 3 New England schools have said no.
MIT, Brown, and Dartmouth have all rejected the compact, even though signing on could mean preferential treatment in federal funding. Earlier this month, the administration sent the 9 schools a long list of demands. Among them, an end to the consideration of race in hiring and admissions, a cap on international students, limits on faculty speech, and campus policies that define gender as binary. Schools that have said no say joining the compact would threaten their autonomy and academic freedom in general. Kirk, GBH News.
The Gold Star Mothers Park in East Cambridge could remain closed until 2027 or beyond after routine testing is revealed lead and other soil contaminants. The Crimson reports that the contaminants could pose a significant health risk to children who play at the park. The city found the contaminants during the reconstruction of the park's basketball court in early August. That park has been closed to the public since early September. The city continues to test for contamination in groundwater under the park, which health officials say could pose other health risks. Residents who frequented the park have been advised to get tested for lead and PCBs from their medical providers. Raining and 64 degrees. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
Hey, Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are not going to be at the library tomorrow. We hope to be there soon, but we are streaming here at youtube.com/GBH News. Mary Wu will be with us for a week from Tuesday, noon to 1. We hope by then we're back at the Boston Public Library. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. We're now joined on Zoom by Eric Deggans. Eric is the Knight Chair in Journalism and Media Ethics at Washington and Lee University and a critic-at-large at NPR. Author of the book Race Baiter: How the Media Wields Dangerous Words to Divide a Nation. Eric, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's good. Thanks for having me back.
It's our pleasure.
Great to talk to you, Eric. So you wrote a really good piece about how Jimmy Kimmel's late-night escapades, his return, might give them a spark. I want to play a little sound from Kimmel's monologue on the first show back after being suspended because people didn't like his remarks about the death of Charlie Kirk. Here he is, Kimmel.
His Magnificence had other business today in New York, big business, addressing the United Nations, which got off to a rocky start when the Trumps hit the escalator and it suddenly stopped. He broke the escalator. Where was that escalator 10 years ago when we needed it on the way down? I also want to thank all of you who supported our show, cared enough to do something about it, to make your voices heard so that mine could be heard. I will never forget it.
Okay, I'm one of those people that's rediscovered Jimmy Kimmel. I tape him now every night and listen to it the next day. He's a riot. So tell us what you said about Kimmel et al.
Sure. Of course, we had this situation where Jimmy Kimmel was suspended indefinitely by Disney after this sort of straight comment that he made about sort of MAGA world and Trump supporters trying to capitalize on the death of Charlie Kirk. And then the public reacted, and celebrities, 400 celebrities signed a petition created by the ACLU. People started dropping their subscriptions to Hulu and Disney Plus. Apparently, cancellations doubled. Now we're learning from new data that's come out. And so Disney reconsidered, even though there were a couple of powerful station groups that declined to carry Jimmy Kimmel's show. Disney reinstated him, and Jimmy credited the public for speaking up for him. All of this happened, of course, after FCC Chair Brendan Carr went on a podcast and threatened the licenses of ABC affiliates that would carry Jimmy Kimmel's show after Jimmy had made the comment. And one thing Jimmy always stressed was that he was not joking about Charlie Kirk's death, and he did not want to make light of the fact that he was assassinated. And when Charlie Kirk was originally killed, he made an emotional statement where he decried the violence and offered condolences to Charlie Kirk's family. So we're now in a situation where I think the late night hosts have learned that there is strength in numbers. And so they have started to work together. Jimmy Kimmel brought his show to Brooklyn the week after it was reinstated. And he had people like Seth Meyers and Stephen Colbert visit his show. He went on Stephen Colbert's show to deliver his first interview about what happened when he was suspended by Disney, and he thought his show would never come back. And I think all these guys are learning that they can create events that draw attention if they work together to save a genre that is definitely in decline but still has value, as Jimmy Kimmel and the reaction to his suspension proved.
Eric, did you think he'd be coming back? I did not. I was with Kimmel. I didn't think he would.
I actually thought he would come back, to be honest, because I thought there'd be too much pressure. And Disney is still a studio that cares very much about working with celebrity talent. One of the things that Bob Iger, who's now the head of Disney, and his number two overseeing television, Dana Walden, a woman who's suspected to be a strong contender to succeed him at the company, they both prize their relationships with celebrity collaborators and with talent. And I knew Hollywood would react intensely against Kimmel's suspension, both because they don't like the idea of somebody being suspended for, doing their jobs, being a comedian and being irreverent, but also because Jimmy Kimmel is very well liked in Hollywood. And, there's a reason why he's hosted the Oscars and the Emmys so many times. Hollywood really likes him and admires the stance that he's taken on the show. And I knew it would be hard for Bob Iger and Dana Walden to continue to sideline him, given how the town was going to react. Well, also, the combination of celebrities and the public canceling memberships to these streamers that they need to make money, Hulu and Disney Plus, I think that was the pressure that made them.
Well, and also, that old line, as goes Ted Cruz, so goes America. I'm sure you've used that a lot of times.
Yeah, I've said that many times.
We're talking about.
I think what I've said with Ted Cruz is that even a broken clock is right.
That's right.
We're talking about Eric Deggans.
So let's talk about some new TV shows. We have a little clip here from the trailer for, this isn't so new, it's season 3, but it's The Diplomat, and it's on Netflix. Here it is.
A terribly flawed woman is now the president, and only we know just how flawed.
Al Weiler, ambassador's wife.
Todd Penn, first lady.
This is an opportunity. You will be in the White House, watching what she does all the time.
I'm not walking around in the middle of a constitutional crisis with a resume stapled to my forehead.
So what do you think of this show?
And I've said before that it is almost like a fantasy version of the world where the people who are running the American government are smart and sharp, and they care about their responsibilities to the American people more than they care about their own personal success. And so what we see in The Diplomat in the 3rd season, Kerry Russell has played this character who was being positioned to take over as vice president because it was viewed that the sitting vice president had a personal scandal that was going to disqualify her from the job. And so Kerry Russell's character becomes the ambassador, the American ambassador to England, to increase her profile and give her the kind of experience that would make her a suitable successor for the vice president. But the vice president is played by Allison Janney, and she's played as someone who's super sharp, super perceptive, and it turns out she deserves to hold on to her job. And as they're sort of feeling each other out and trying to get a sense of whether or not they can trust each other, these two characters, the president dies, Allison Janney's character becomes president, and there becomes this sense of, well, who's going to be the vice president? Will it wind up being this woman that was kind of being positioned to be vice president anyway? And that's kind of what's unfolding in the third season of The Diplomat. And the person who's playing Allison Janney's husband, the person who supposedly caused this scandal that would cause her to lose the vice presidency, is Brad Whitford, who was her co-star on The West Wing. So we get this mini West Wing reunion where the two of them play husband and wife. And he's also much smarter and sharper than perhaps the public realized or the show might lead you to believe as it was starting. And so you have all these smart, principled people who are trying to navigate, pretty tricky waters and figure out what's best for the country and what's best for themselves in an environment where a lot of the action is taking place in Britain. So we're not so consumed with the partisanship that is roiling America. Because so much of this is taking place outside of America, they have a chance to really talk about politics and the cost of secret actions and what happens when smart people get in their own way. And, how can Kerry Russell's character maintain her marriage when it's clear that her husband also has some designs on the executive office. I think it's a great drama. I love it.
Speaking of Kerry Russell, I don't think we've ever had this discussion with you, if I may digress for a minute.
Sure.
I love The Americans, by the way. And not only that I love The Americans, if I had to rate the 10 best endings of a series of all time, I would put that at 1 or 2, maybe with The Wire and MASH and whatever. What do you think of how did that rank in your ending list there, Eric Deggans?
Well, I will admit, number one, not being the closest viewer of The Americans, I always admired the show, but it was not a show that I connected with emotionally that much. I will say, however, that I really liked the two stars, Kerry Russell and Matthew Rhys, and they've both gone on to do really amazing work, even since that show. And The Americans, I think, was very well crafted, and I think it really did end well. This is a show that inspired a lot of shows that came after it. And that's what's also important to remember about shows like The Americans. I judge a show like that, not just for what they did when the show was on, but for how it seemed to inspire TV storytelling after the show left the air. And I think you can't deny how, the drive toward quality TV that was accelerated by the success of a show like that.
By the way, the reason there was such an emotional connection with me with that show, not only because I liked the show, but because a Russian couple who got in the same sort of situation lived 5 blocks from my house in Cambridge, I should say.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
were you surprised to hear that they lived in your neighborhood?
Yeah, I just thought that. No, I didn't know them, but yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised. We're talking to Eric Deggans. So why don't we take an early break so we have a little more time when we come back, Marjorie?
Yeah, we'll take an early break and we'll be right back to talk with Eric Deggans about some other great TV shows that are in the offing for you this season. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be right back.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Let me repeat those numbers. 888-897-9424. gbhnews.org is where you can give remotely. And we do these fundraisers a few times a year. This is the 4th day of the fundraiser because we don't have commercials here. And we are particularly interested in how we do this time around because, as you know, we've lost all our federal funding because the current administration doesn't like public television or public radio either. So we're more dependent than ever on donations from listeners like you. But I want to point out, Jim, we have this great offering today, this $12.50 for $12.50 a month. This evening with Rick Steves, the wine tasting. We have a text from people who've been to it before. Listen to Sue from Beverly. I listen to Jim and Marjorie every day. I love their guests. They keep my sanity in these strange times. This will be my third wine tasting with GBH and Rick Steves because they love it. Helen from Lexington. We've done the Rick Steves wine tasting, and it is great. So a lot of people that have done it before want to do it again because he's a great guy. He's very uplifting to talk to. You learn a lot about wine. You sit in your home. We deliver the wine to your house. These little bottles.
We don't. Somebody does.
No, we do not.
Exactly.
Someone does. But you don't have to go anywhere. It shows up at your front stoop. You have the wine. You put it in the refrigerator if you need to put it in the refrigerator. You don't if you don't. Then you wait to talk to Rick Steves. It's wonderful on Zoom. So 888-897-9424 is the number. gbhnews.org is the website.
And if you hear Rick on our show every month, he's a great storyteller in addition to the incredible experience he has. And by the way, $12.50 a month, $150 all at once. Great gift if you choose not to do it yourself. And for an additional $12.50 a month, you know what happens, Marjorie? Marjorie will deliver the wine to your house. It's a fabulous deal. The number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We're continuing our conversation with NPR critic-at-large, Eric Deggans.
So, Eric, last week we were lucky enough to be visited again by Alex Edelman. He's a local kid, Brookline kid. He's become quite a successful comedian. He's one of the featured people on the paper. So here's a little sound of Alex talking about the paper with us last week. Oh.
Okay.
I guess we don't have the sound of Alex talking about.
Want me to do my Alex Edelman?
Yeah, I wish you would, actually. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, he's talking about.
Anyway, in the paper.
Yeah.
That was not horrible, actually. Not horrible. Not great, but not horrible,
Yeah.
I should say.
I called up my nerdy white guy voice.
He's very nerdy. And in one of the early episodes, maybe it's the pilot, they got a little picture of him eating out of his little kid's lunchbox because apparently his wife makes the same lunch for him as the little kid.
We have Alex's sound now.
We have
Here
the
it
sound
is.
now. Here it is.
It's a positive show about people trying to build something. It's about a community of people making a product about their community, for their community, something that you two would have absolutely no idea about. And in that way, it's sort of like a love letter to local journalism. And weirdly, the stories lend itself to being very like funny and small and weird and quirky and offbeat.
I thought it was funny and small and weird and quirky and offbeat too. I liked it. What'd you think?
Yeah, I liked it too. It reminded me a lot of the way Parks and Rec satirized, working for a small municipal government and life in a small town. So what the paper does is it focuses on this small newspaper that just happens to be owned by the same company that once owned Dunder Mifflin, the paper company that was home for the American version of The Office. It's in a different town. It's not in Scranton, but it's a typically small operation, and we have a character who shows up to be the new editor-in-chief, who is fired up about journalism and really wants to do a good job, and he comes to a publication that is mostly cutting and pasting wire stories into a print product in order to pay for advertising, and a managing editor who's much more focused on her social media than the actual operating of the newspaper. And as I told your producer when we were talking about this segment, it's like it hits a little too close to home, really.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
There are a lot of print outlets around the country that have become so small and so, they have so few resources that it can sometimes feel a little bit like they're almost at that level. But to have a program that comes along and says it doesn't have to be that way, and all it takes is a few dedicated people who remember what good journalism is to turn that around and really do something important in their community, I think that's a great love letter. And even though it's completely making fun of the industry and completely making fun of these trends that can be heartbreaking when they happen in real life, it's also a love letter to the ideals that built journalism in the first place. And so in the same way that Parks and Rec was ultimately a love letter to people who decide to work for municipal government, given how little they get paid and what a hassle it is and how hard it can be sometimes. I think the same thing, we're seeing the same thing in the paper, and it's well done.
Yeah.
And the reaction to it has been positive enough that they've aired it on NBC.
Good.
There's a sense that the show is getting a lot more attention than you might have expected, given that Peacock seems to have a hard time, the streaming service seems to have a hard time making a larger impact. I think it's great, and because it's done so well, I'm sure that NBC and Comcast and Peacock are going to keep supporting it.
So, Eric Deggans, I was listening to some podcast, I forget which one, which talked about Americans' fixation on true crime stories. They're huge sellers, the books, the shows. So I don't know if I can get through Devil in Disguise. This is John Wayne Gacy, the serial killer, the one who killed multiple I think they're mostly teenage boys. But anyway, here's a little clip from it.
If I'm in a bad mood, it is bad for me to be a clown. I'm serious. Because some of those kids can just be little bastards, you know? You know?
Yeah.
And instead of pinching them on the cheek, you just want to whack the shit out of them, right?
Yeah. I feel that.
But when you clown, you can hide who you really are and what you really feel. You just hide behind a mask of love and happiness and joy. But I figure that clowns can get away with anything because nobody would expect it.
What'd you think, Eric?
So Devil in Disguise is an interesting twist because one of the things that I've said about the scripted shows that focus on serial killers and criminals is that no matter how you try to depict the terribleness of what they did, if the camera spends a lot of time with them, it will humanize them. And it winds up making people feel as if the TV show is glorifying what they did, even though it's not necessarily trying to do that. You spend enough time and you see the interior life of somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, which the Monster series did on Netflix, and you wind up identifying with that person as a human, no matter what terrible things they did. They managed with this limited series to break that cycle. And even though Michael Chernus does a great job playing John Wayne Gacy, and you might remember him playing a character on Apple TV Plus's Severance, he's done a ton of stuff. He's been in everything from Law and Order to Royal Pains. But he's a great actor, and he plays this guy really well. But you don't wind up identifying with him as a human because they do such a great job of bringing out the humanity of the parents of the victims.
Oh, good.
The police officers who had to investigate this. I mean, they wound up sort of investigating a missing kid because the parents wouldn't give up on their kid. And they stumble on Gacy, and then they stumble on the fact that he buried so many of them underneath his house. And they have to excavate them. And so you have these cops who's, they always figured they'd be hunting bad guys out in the streets, and instead what they're doing is they have jackhammers and they're breaking up concrete and they're pulling, corpses out of a demented person's basement. So I think the show does a really, really good job of emphasizing their humanity while also showing how incredibly terrible John Wayne Gacy was. And how terrible the crimes were, and how he presented as this very sort of welcoming, charismatic, hey, everybody likes him kind of figure. But there was this weirdness underneath that kind of put people off. And he had a way. At least in the series, he refers to himself as many different people. And there's a John that comes out, who's the person who does the killing, who's ruthless and terrible. And then there's another version of his personality where he's more charismatic and was married for a time and worked as a clown for parties, as you heard in the clip.
Hey, we only have a minute and a half left, so maybe this is unfair, but can we switch to your a journalism chair hat. We should have broached this earlier. We talked to our listeners about the rallies, the No King rallies across the country at the top. And I don't know if we had Margaret Sullivan on last week, and Margaret Sullivan had the exact same observation as Marjorie. Marjorie brought in the front page of the New York Times Sunday, where there were two little tiny pictures below the fold. You had to go to page 23 to find a story. CBS News, as Margaret said, online, very little mention. What do you make of that meek coverage, for lack of a better expression, in some legacy media, Eric?
Well, the first thing I would say is that there were plenty of media outlets that did not cover it that way, that covered it prominently. And so I think we have to be careful about saying the media when we talk about coverage decisions.
I agree with you.
There were particular media outlets that make puzzling choices, particularly the New York Times. I don't understand why they chose to cover it the way they did. But there were other newspapers that put it all across their front pages and emphasized that there were millions of people who showed up in cities across the country. One of the things I think that I'm seeing on social media and such is that protests are meant to be disruptive. And there are people who naturally recoil from disruptive actions and try to downplay them or try to pull back from them. And I think some journalists are that way as well. They want to be careful about how they talk about a protest because they don't want to seem to be endorsing it. They just want to cover it. But I think that creates a situation where you got to talk about what actually happened. And if you have protests on a weekend in cities all across the country that drew 7 million people, and you don't have it on your front page prominently, I mean, what else deserves to be there?
Exactly.
So I think we've reached a point where the public has to sort of be discerning and lift up those news outlets that are making the correct choices and criticize those news outlets that are not making the correct choices, but don't lambaste everybody for the bad coverage decisions that are made by a few outlets.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the blowback and the letters to the editor section of the Times. I suspect it's going to be huge. Thank you very much, Eric Deggans.
It's going to be huge.
Another incredible invitation. My God.
Wow.
I'm Rich Little over here.
Yeah, you could get a side gig, Eric. I think it's there.
We love having you on bigly, Eric. I want to make that clear. See you soon. Be well.
Right,
Eric Deggans, take care.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We have been speaking with Eric Deggans. He's NPR's critic-at-large and the Knight Chair in Journalism and Media Ethics at Washington and Lee University. And we love talking to Eric and love talking about TV shows. Coming up for this pledge break, we're going to talk with former Massachusetts Education Secretary Paul Reville about Massachusetts schools seem to be really suffering, especially if you are growing up in poor towns with unfunded or not well enough funded schools. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
Okay, we have got one of the best enticements of the whole week. Basically, they're gifts that we give to you for
Normal
taking the
people call
time.
them thank you gifts, by the way.
Thank you gifts. Thank you gifts. That's what
exactly,
it is.
Yeah.
For $12.50 a month, we will thank you for your donation by giving you a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with none other than Rick Steves. He's a great travel writer, expert on travel. He also knows a thing or two about wine. And you're going to get to talk to him and engage with him over 6 small bottles of French wine over many I think it lasts an hour and a half, doesn't it?
I don't know.
It starts at 8 o'clock, Thursday, February 26th. And you get the wine delivered to your house. 3 reds, 3 whites. You learn all about the wine. We learned a lot about how to drink wine. Remember swishing the glass around and all that kind of stuff? So it's a really fun evening. You don't have to worry about how much you're drinking because you're not going anywhere. Sit in your house, listen to Rick Steves, who is one of the most uplifting people I've ever talked to. 888-897-9424 GBH News is the website. Hello, Jim.
Hi, and as I said before, I don't know if you just said this. If you're not into this, or even if you are into it, why don't you buy a second one as a gift for somebody? How much better? You buy Rick Steves.
Or
you buy
Valentine's
wine for people.
Day. Valentine's Day. You and your significant other could have the bottles of wine, talk to Rick Steves. People are raving about these in the comments, by the way.
Which raving about ways?
Evenings with Rick Steves.
They're fabulous. It's not the first time he's done it. They're great. Marjorie and I did it once. We didn't get quite the same level of ravedom that Rick Steves did.
Asked us again.
No, they haven't asked us. I think that may say everything you need to know. The number's 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Hey, Paul. Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Not at the library tomorrow. We're so sorry. I know it's like a broken record. Mayor Wu joins us a week from tomorrow. We hope at the library. Joined now in Studio 3 by Paul Reville. Paul is the former Secretary of Education from Massachusetts and a professor at Harvard University's Graduate School of Education, where he also leads the Ed Redesign Lab. Hello there, Paul.
Good to be with you, Jim and Marjorie.
Good to see you.
So we always hear the line, especially from politicians, we have the best schools in the country in Massachusetts. But you read these stories, and it seems like what we have is really good schools if you're an upper middle class family living in Massachusetts. And if you're not, we're in big trouble.
That's a fair assessment. We have some of the biggest gaps between, the top 10% and the bottom 10% in the country. So we've got a lot of work to do. It's what I always used to say when I was Secretary of Education, that while on average we do better than almost any other state and all states on some occasions, when you look behind the averages, you see these really significant gaps between the top of the scale and the bottom of the scale.
And I mistakenly said it's about funding. It is to a certain degree about funding, but Boston spends a lot of, I don't know, it's a lot of money. I used to know exactly how much it is. It's a ton of money on the schools, and they still struggle in the schools. And the schools in Boston are majority working class and poor kids.
Well, cities are also struggling with a lot more issues in a kid that comes to the classroom than a suburban
But
town
I'm pointing out that they spend a lot of money per pupil. It's not necessarily always a funding issue.
There isn't an exact production function, what the economists would call money in equals quality out, because as Jim points out, I mean, the challenges that you're dealing with in an urban system are much greater in terms of educating the children. The challenges that the children are facing outside of school are way more significant than they are in the affluent suburbs in general. So therefore, they ought to be spending more. On the other hand, we do have, high-performing, low-spending districts, and we have a lot of low-performing, high-spending districts around. And so, we haven't got the balance right.
So, Paul, a year ago, there was a ballot question about whether or not to continue MCAS and who voted no. One of us voted yes.
We voted correctly.
I voted
Paul
with the 60% who are yes.
There we go.
And we've had this discussion with you about a half dozen times. What's going to come next? When's the state government going to come up with an alternative? Well, a couple of days ago, they came out with, I guess, preliminary findings, because the formal report, I think, is December 1. Headline in the Globe is State Mulls End of Course Test, but officials insist there won't be another high states graduation exam. What are they proposing exactly, and what do you think?
Well, I mean, the devil's in the details, and this was a general proposal, not a specific proposal. I think it's a perfectly legitimate effort to solve an almost insoluble problem of how do we get a uniform standard without having a uniform measuring stick like MCAS. The idea behind a uniform standard is we ought to be able to tell, irrespective of where you were educated, that you have the skills and knowledge necessary to move on to college or on to the next step in your career. MCAS was an attempt to do that, to set a standard. It wasn't, it was only a 10th grade standard. Many people who passed it still needed remedial work when they went on to college, but it was recognized as one of the highest standards in the nation, which is a statement in itself. The voters, with a strong push from the unions, decided that they didn't want that kind of a high-stakes test for graduation. So now the Commonwealth is struggling for how do we basically sort of validate the value of a Massachusetts high school diploma. We have some of the lowest requirements in the country for graduation here, and so the Commonwealth.
What does that mean, lowest requirements?
What does that mean? Jim. This is all your fault.
Well, they're all low. We for state requirements. We
like what?
You have to take 4 years of English and 1 year of civics and history, or 4 years of physical education. I mean, it's really minimal.
Well, that's not. I mean, that's not the voters' problem. That's the problem that the state is too timid and is not willing to do statewide mandates that common sense suggests we should.
Yeah, but
for cities and towns, right?
The states have always resisted these course mandates because the quality of the courses varies widely. The content of the courses varies widely. The rigor of the courses varies widely. We're across 351 cities and towns and more than 400 separate school districts. So we're trying to get a common standard so we have some idea of how people are doing in different places against the common standard of what's deemed necessary.
But these end-of-course tests, they're not going to be a common standard, are they?
Well,
because if they're
it
different
depends.
courses taught in different ways.
Assessment can drive content. So if these tests get taken seriously, they will begin to shape the content of those courses. Right now we have a mass core, but the mass core really describes a set of courses you need to take, but it doesn't go into any kind of significant detail about what's contained in those courses. So a course in one community may be way more rigorous than the course in the other community. The standard for passing may be different. We have some communities who have already said a D- standard will be sufficient for passing, and you can move on. Others are going to insist on a higher standard. So, how do we create a level playing field so we know which kids need help?
But this
Basically,
doesn't do it. Is that a fair? Based on what you know, this doesn't do it.
Well, so far we don't see the details in it. I mean, there's no real backbone in it unless it's required at some level. And there's some urgency put behind it.
Public school, thank goodness, K through 12 is free. If you want to go to public school, it's free. So what I wonder is, as it stands now, when a child graduates and they have done poorly in school, one of the things I liked about the MCAS is that you found out in 10th grade so the kid could get some help.
That's right.
From 10th grade to 12th grade before they graduated without knowing sufficiently how to read and write. Is there anything that's free now for once you graduated being unable to read and write sufficiently? Or do we just throw these kids out there and let them sink or swim?
Well, I mean, in fairness, there is, we've reverted to the status quo ante before we had education reform in the 1980s, and every district sets its own standards. So it isn't as though the towns don't have their own standards. They have a certain number of courses you have to pass and certain averages and attendance requirements and things of this nature, but they're not sufficiently uniform to give us any reading as a state. I mean, part of the rationale behind the Education Reform Act of 1993 was it's in the interest of the Commonwealth, of our democracy and of our economy, to have at least a high minimum standard of proficiency in key subjects like English, math, science, civics, etc. And now we don't really have that yardstick. We've just said, everybody do your own thing. Well, when everybody was doing their own thing, we know who lost and who was behind.
Yeah, but it seems it's almost like we relitigate this ballot question. It happened. Whether you two obviously think it was a mistake, but it happened. So the question is, can the goals that you advance, which are hard to disagree with, by the way, Paul, be achieved through anything other than an 10th grade MCAS as a graduation requirement, because that's not coming back. I mean, for example, I know you run the state bureaucracy on this thing. I continue to be amazed, especially after this vote, that the state is not willing to mandate more for cities and towns. I know they're nervous about doing that, but the circumstances have changed as of November of last year.
Or maybe,
so shouldn't the state step in and require a certain something that at least is step one in this process?
Or maybe we think it's not, as I said, all about funding. It's about the way the schools are operating right now in the Caramilla piece, that they're almost not functioning at all with people's lives.
Caramilla was the piece about
the
school day kind of thing.
Yeah.
So why doesn't the state, as a next step, do more mandates for cities and towns, even though I know people locally don't like it?
Well, I think that's one of the options that's being explored. I mean, the governor's created a commission. The commission has to report by December 1st, so it's getting close. And this recent discussion that they had at the Board of Education, where the Secretary of Education and the Commissioner of Education introduced end-of-course exams as a possible solution to the problem.
But that does nothing to deal with the disparities from one community to another that you're always talking about. State mandates would deal with that.
You mean state mandates in terms of finance?
No, state mandates in terms of courses and things like that.
But I mean, if they ultimately insist on you have to pass these exams, the exams will be standardized. The same exam, end of course, will be given to Algebra 1 in every community in the Commonwealth. So if you take Algebra 1, you'll have to pass this test.
Or what? Or if you don't pass this test?
Then, for example, you won't be able to move to Algebra 2. Algebra 2 is required in the mass course. So the state could say you have to take and pass all the courses in mass core. And now if we put in a test requirement at the end of each of those courses, it will mean that they have to meet the standards in each of those several exams that will go along with those courses. So it's a different form of a mandate. It's more complicated because there are multiple tests, but it would have the same effect of giving us some kind of visibility on who's doing well, who isn't doing well, who needs extra help. And providing, part of this was an entitlement. This was one of the arguments we always had about having MCAS as a graduation requirement. Is it a punishment, holding people back even though they're good kids and they've attended school? Or is it an entitlement, which those of us who promoted the reform felt it was? In other words, saying, if you're not up to the standard, we owe it to you as a system
to make sure
to give you the education you need to become proficient in math and English and civics and science to move to the next level. And
Jim is in favor of graduated people who can't read and write, and then it's all over for them for the rest of their lives.
No, a mere 60% of the voters agree with me, Marjorie. It is what it is, and you move on and you figure out an alternative.
Representation in the advertisements about the ballot questions.
I was reading an article this morning.
It
just basically said, the whole nation's performance is plateaued here.
This is the Atlantic thing about we're about to become an illiterate nation.
We're becoming an illiterate nation. That's good. I think that's good. We have to go to the break, but Paul, hold that thought. We'll be right back. We're talking with Paul Reville, former Education Secretary in Massachusetts, about our schools, which aren't doing so well. You're listening to Jim Browdy and Marjorie Regan, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support, so please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. This is one of our occasional pledge breaks, and we're doing this so we don't have to have commercials the rest of the time, which would be like 6 or 7 minutes, 3 times an hour, and that would be horrible. And this one is particularly fraught because the government, under the Trump administration, has unfunded public radio and public TV, so we are now ever more grateful to those of you who take the time to give and to the generosity of the people that listen to these stations, because that's where the money's going to come from now. So we have a wonderful present. I've said it before, but this is a particularly great one. Well, what do you want? I call it enticement. You don't like that.
I didn't say I didn't like it.
What word would you like to use?
It's a thank you gift.
It's a thank you gift.
For your contribution.
It is a thank you gift.
You're welcome.
And this is a great one. Thursday night, February 26, 8 p.m. I said before, Christmas gift, even better, Valentine's gift. You and your significant other will enjoy 6 small bottles of wine, and they're enough for 2 glasses. I mean, they're substantial bottles. They're delivered right to your door. Then you sit them up at the table, kitchen table, dining room table, Thursday, February 26th, and you spend at 8 o'clock I think it's an hour and a half, or maybe it's an hour, with Rick Steves, who is a wonderful guy. You may have seen him on TV. We have his radio show runs here on Sunday afternoons. He is an expert traveler and tells you how to take wonderful vacations. You can sit and drink wine with him on Zoom for an hour and a half. 888-897-9424, GBH gbhnews.org.
Stephen Middleton, who was kind enough to make contributions, says, I love the fair, honest reporting. Of course, listening to Marjorie and Jim just makes my day. I don't know what it makes, but it makes my day. So
thank you.
She doesn't know what it makes it. That's one. Thank you very much for that. There's some wonderful things. Kim and Monticello. Monticello, is that how you say
Monticello.
that? Okay, I love
Maybe
Jim
it's
and Marjorie.
Monticello.
They've been, whatever it is, Kim's from there. They've been a comfort and joy in these difficult times. Well, you guys have been a comfort and joy to us, too, in these difficult times. Sharon and West Newbury, Jim and Marjorie are the best. They help make sense of this disturbing time. Well, if you want to join that list, by the way, they've all made contributions. We're kind enough to spend an extra minute leaving a comment, and by the way, the comments don't just mean a lot to us. The team we work with, the other shows, if you have time to both give and do that, it's great. Here is somebody who says, this is Sue and Beverly. I listen to Jim and Marjorie every day. I love their guests. They keep me sane during these strange times we're living through. This will be my third wine tasting with GBH and Rick Steve.
I know.
So obviously,
isn't that great?
That's how great it is.
Very
877 whoops, no, it isn't. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie and Jim Browdy. We're continuing our conversation with former Secretary of Education Paul Reville. He's now at Harvard.
Okay, on behalf of all my friends who got kids going into kindergarten or in kindergarten and first grade right now, have we decided yet to teach the correct way of teaching reading, or are we sticking to the old way that seems to be failing our kids who are lagging behind in their reading skills in Massachusetts?
Well, the legislature's been working on a bill that the governor has put forward a program. The Department of Education is awarding incentive grants out there. So I think we're definitely moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And
so the kids this year may just have to suffer learning the wrong way. While we wait.
We haven't quite got to the mandates that Jim was referring to earlier, but I think we're about to get there. That it's going to be a requirement that you be able to show that you're using evidence-based methods, and those evidence-based methods will obviously include phonics.
They would have to vote against the MTA, all those Democrats.
Okay, so we're moving on. I mean, enough.
I just want
you were like Janie OneNote.
Because it's a big deal.
Yeah, and you know what they can do?
Kids can't read.
Big boys and girls vote their conscience, and they can say no to a union or a trade organization.
They have kids in school right now, and they may not be learning the right way, and it could be with where our legislature moves.
I would blame the legislature who votes, not a union that has no formal power. All they do is lobby.
And they lobby teachers and parents, Jim.
So education department, I think we know.
Really, it's unbelievable the way he
it's all you talk about is the Mass Teachers Association.
Because you are so wrong.
Okay, so the education department, I think we know
literacy is failing.
I think we know cannot be eliminated without a congressional vote, which they will never get because they need 60 votes in the Senate. Obviously, the Democrats aren't going to go along, but they can gut it. And have a shell left, which is what Linda A1 McMahon is doing, and Donald Trump's special education funding, programs for special education. Maybe that's part of my answer. Can you explain to people, you did a month or two ago when Trump was first talking about this in his second term, why does the average parent listening to our show or the parent-to-be care about an adequately funded federal education department? Why should they?
Well, because there are a lot of functions that department performs that are in the interest of parents. Take special education, which is one of the areas that's being deeply cut and hurt by what's been going on in the Trump administration. They're eliminating the capacity of the department to serve as the sort of final jurisdiction, the final court of appeals for parents who aren't getting adequate services for their children that they're entitled to under federal and state law. So at the time the Trump administration came in, I think there were 20,000 appeals pending in that sub-department of the Department of Education. Now that group has been slashed way back. The department size overall is half of what it used to be, and now they're proposing another 500 people be cut as a result of the federal shutdown here. So they're intentionally decimating the department and getting it to the point where they know that they have to have an act of Congress to eliminate the department, but they're going to sufficiently cripple the department by virtue of not having the capacity, not having the people. over time, and transferring some of its functions to other agencies. So that's what's going on, and it will apply to all sorts of protections. I mean, the federal government wasn't running education. The president's fond of saying we're turning it back to the states. Well, it never left the states. It's always been the state responsibility shared with local jurisdictions. Federal government provides 8% of the funding. They have a lot of regulations and guidelines in order to receive the 8%, and now they're just basically not going to be enforcing a lot of those guidelines because they're eliminating the people in the department who would make sure that the schools are complying with, for example, spending requirements, how they spend special education or bilingual education money, or money that's supposed to be going to low-income districts.
It was Department of Ed that found out that Massachusetts was not doing that correctly. Isn't that correct? Remember when we weren't spending the right
special
amount?
That's right, on special ed, and on multilingual learners and things of that nature. So that kind of oversight is just disappearing because, this is one of the paradoxes, because the Trump administration has a lot of ideas on what to do in education, but they're eliminating the troops that they might have to enforce that. And they're leaving it to let's see what the states do, except if they want to intervene. So on transgender issues, they want to intervene from the federal government. On some of the book issues and syllabus and curriculum. So suddenly a Republican Party that was once all about states' rights is reaching into the local level, having said they're giving it back to locals in order to institute their particular ideological perspective.
And is the federal money disappearing too?
Not yet, no. They haven't. They can't. The IDEA Act, which, again, going back to special education, is a big chunk of money that comes in for students with disabilities. They can't eliminate that money, and they haven't tried to eliminate that money. But the way in which it goes out, the pace at which it goes out, the degree to which states and localities are held accountable for how that money is spent, all of that has been diminished through the actions of the government so far.
Paul, thank you very much, as always, for coming in. We much appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it too, Paul. I want you to be clear.
I'm sorry.
Why don't you say the same things you say every time for the next minute, just to get them out of your system?
She didn't bring up
the voters didn't know what they were doing.
They didn't.
Last November.
They didn't.
The Mass Teachers Association, by the way, which is almost solely responsible for close to $2 billion more a year for education and transportation. We don't like that either, do we, through the millionaire's tax?
I'm not sure where all that funding went, Jim. I'm not sure.
You're joking,
but
of course.
I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim, Teachers Union, right or wrong. Rowdy.
You are really brutal.
And we've been speaking with former Massachusetts education.
What's that?
He got the award. President's Award. That's right. President's Award.
I got an award from the organization.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're hanging tough no matter what.
Has nothing to do with my position.
Nothing to do.
None.
Mass Education Secretary Paul Reville has been kind enough to come in here and listen to us.
He's never coming back. That's pretty obvious.
I think it was a pleasure to be with you, but I'll have to rethink that.
Okay. He's a professor at Harvard University. He's like a marriage counselor. He's in here every week with two bickering people. I'm sorry about that.
I thought we were getting closer, but
yeah, we are.
We need to step back.
Okay. After the 1 o'clock news, we're going to talk with Princeton's Khalil Gibran Muhammad, talking about universities finally seeming to get together to fight back against the Trump administration. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim, Mass Teachers Union, right or wrong. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Boston Public Radio today was made possible by our listener contributors and local businesses. That support is the only way to keep Boston Public Radio on the radio. So please do your part by giving during our fall membership drive online at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424. I'm Maeve Buckley, and I'm joined by Sonia Lee.
And good afternoon. And accountability journalism is a pillar of our democracy, and it is under attack. The White House, Congress, and the Pentagon are all trying to create a world in which they control what you hear and don't hear about their activities. That flies in the face of the First Amendment. You can stand up to these efforts to diminish the free press by supporting GBH during this fall membership drive. By keeping GBH and NPR strong, you help ensure there will always be journalism that gives you the full narrative out of Washington. And especially BPR fans, we are looking for your contribution right now. 12 people standing up for democracy democracy, standing up for a free press here in these next 4 minutes. You can join in gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And we are talking to you, Boston Public Radio fans. This is the moment to step forward and let us know that this show is one of your favorites on GBH. Now that our federal funding is gone, we need everyone who loves Boston Public Radio to fund Boston Public Radio here. It's that simple. So be one of the people to power GBH here. Become a sustaining member now by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
And we have a terrific thank you gift that we are offering today through the membership drive. It is a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves and a professional sommelier. This is a special offer today during the pledge drive. Your ticket includes 6 small bottles of French wine, plenty for a couple people to share. It's shipped to your door. The tasting is going to be Thursday, February 22nd, beginning at 8 o'clock online and in your home. Don't miss out on this really cool event. We've been doing this for a few years now. Jim and Marjorie love it. Everybody who has participated. There are people coming back to do it again. So don't miss out on this event. $12.50 a month as a sustaining member. Secure your ticket. The pledge level is going to go up after today, so this is the time. You can also give at 888-897-9424.
Please become a sustaining member at $5 or $10 or $15 per month or whatever amount works best for you. It's especially important right now so we can replace lost federal funding and be here for you with the NPR and GBH News that you trust. It's so easy to enroll. We just need a little bit of contact information and the monthly amount you'd like to give and whether you want it deducted from your bank account or charged to a credit card. The process doesn't take long, but that consistent source of funding for GBH will make a huge difference. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
And since the White House and Congress killed our federal funding, almost all of our operating budget comes from community support. So your gift added with others is how we're going to keep this independent source for journalism on the air and available to all. And programs like Boston Public Radio, which you don't find anywhere else on public radio. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
Hey, thank you so much, Heather in Chatham and also Susan in Marlboro, helping us chip away at our goal. We're down to just 9 more people we're looking to hear from to wrap up this hour in the next few minutes. Join them, support your Boston Public Radio listening, and be one of the 9 people we're looking to hear from here. 888-897-9424 or give online, gbhnews.org.
Susan in Marlboro says, I love Jim and Marjorie, listen to them every day. Also, Heather in Chatham says, I work from home and am addicted to Jim and Marjorie. Okay, we're down to 5 more people giving here in just these last couple of minutes. We're going to get back to Boston Public Radio. We hope you'll give while you're listening. You can give at gbhnews.org. Don't forget, you can get it on that wine event as well for $12.50 a month. 888-897-9424.
I'm Jim Browdy, head on R3.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Global View Communications, providing customized inclusion strategy recommendations to organizations that align with our culture and business priorities. Learn more at inclusionitsworthit.com. Global View Communications. Inclusion, it's worth it. And the Bach Center, presenting Herbie Hancock, the groundbreaking jazz musician and Grammy Award-winning icon. Herbie Hancock at the Bach Center Wang Theater, Wednesday, October 29th. Tickets at bachcenter.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on R3 of BPR. Princeton's Khalil Gibran Muhammad offers reaction to a handful of top universities finally just saying no to Trump, and his compact deal has listed demands in exchange for federal funding dollars. What changed? Then we'll get from him the latest on the Trump administration's war on diversity, equity, inclusion, and civil rights.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we're ending our Monday opening phone and text lines to ask you, is it ever possible to over-relax? A piece in the New York Times wrestles with the complex emotion of having the time to unwind, but not being able to shake off feelings of slothfulness and self-loathing, Jim. Are you a professional deadbeat? Call us. 877-301-8970, BPR and 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is hosting the Prime Minister of Australia this hour.
We are discussing critical minerals and rare earths, and we're going to be signing an agreement that's been negotiated over a period of 4 or 5 months. And it was sort of good timing that we got it done just in time for the visit. And we worked together very much on rare earths, critical minerals, and lots of other things. And we've had a very good relationship. We've been working on that for quite a while.
The leaders are discussing forging a stronger security and defense partnership. Taking questions ahead of the talks, Trump told reporters he's been invited to go to China, which is expected to happen early next year. Health officials in Gaza say Israeli airstrikes yesterday killed nearly 50 people in the enclave. NPR's Aya Batrawi reports the attacks threatened to unravel a U.S. brokered ceasefire.
Israel's military says 2 soldiers were killed in an attack in southern Gaza, sparking a wave of airstrikes that killed Palestinians, many of them women and children, over the weekend. Israel says it also dropped more than 120 bombs on a Hamas tunnel. A Hamas official who spoke anonymously to NPR in order to brief the media says it was rogue militants who carried out the deadly attack on Israeli troops. President Trump also told reporters that, quote, rebels were behind the attack. Meanwhile, White House envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner are visiting Israel to discuss next steps of the ceasefire. A senior Hamas delegation is also visiting Egypt for similar discussions. Aya Batrawi, NPR News, Dubai.
Today is a deadline for a handful of universities to agree to a list of commitments that align with the Trump administration's political priorities in exchange for preferential access to federal funds. NPR's Alyssa Nadwarny reports so far 6 schools have indicated they will not be signing the agreement.
The White House sent the so-called Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education to 9 colleges, both private and public, on October 1st. It would require schools to freeze tuition for 5 years, limit international student enrollment, and require standardized tests for admissions, among other things. The University of Virginia is among the schools to decline. UVA's interim president said they wanted, quote, no special treatment when it comes to federal funding. On Friday, the White House held a meeting with college leaders to discuss the compact. On X, Education Secretary Linda McMahon said the meeting was, quote, positive and an important step. The White House did not provide details on how they will incorporate feedback or make changes to the compact. Alyssa Nadwarny, NPR News.
Amazon Web Services is working to fully restore connectivity and access to services disrupted during an early morning outage. The system malfunction led to increased error rates and latencies and prevented users worldwide from accessing major websites and apps, affecting everything from banking to social media. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Fall River Fire Department has released an internal review of its response to the Gabriel House Fire assisted living center that killed 10 people in July. The report released today calls the fire one of the most complex and challenging incidents in Fall River Fire Department history. Mass Live reports the report has a chronological breakdown of what happened from the time of the first call to the dispatch center. Details the rescues of 53 people, many of whom had mobility challenges and cognitive impairments. The report also recommended legislative actions and code changes for assisted living facilities and other high-risk occupancies, including group homes, boarding houses, daycares, sober homes, and shelters. And 175 years ago this week, about 1,000 people descended on Worcester for the first National Women's Rights Convention. Gathering helped power the national fight for gender equality. Barbara Gerton with the Museum of Worcester says organizers chose to meet in Worcester because the city was considered a welcoming place for activists.
Worcester was a little bit more radical and free-thinking than Boston. It was a place where foment, new ideas were all being bandied about.
The Museum of Worcester is hosting a reenactment of the convention at Mechanics Hall. The 2-day event also features discussions about ongoing gender equity issues like the wage gap and reproductive health. It is 64 degrees and raining in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on Thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And from the Doris Duke Foundation.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're not at the library today, but good news. I think we're going to be back at the library on Wednesday.
Apparently so.
Yeah, we're very excited about that. And Mayor Wu will join us a week from Tuesday from 12 to 1 at the Boston Public Library. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. We're joined on Zoom by Khalil Gibran Princeton, and the non-resident senior fellow at the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation at the Harvard Kennedy School. Good to see you, as always.
Hi, great to be back.
Yeah, so we've talked to you so many times about how universities weren't getting together to fight back against the Trump administration. They're starting to do that. What do you think's going on, and why?
Well, I think that the compact lays bare an inescapable reality that while we've talked about it for a long time, it is now as plain as it can possibly be laid out, which is to say, if you are willing to go along with this administration's government-sponsored set of ideas about how this society should work, if you are willing to express loyalty and obedience to our vision of the world, then you can be fast-tracked for money. We will give you money to do our bidding. And one of the lines in the compact states explicitly that the university will punish departments that, in its language, belittles conservative ideals. So there's no pretense here that viewpoint diversity, as it was articulated earlier in the spring as the goal here, is now really about a hard and fast conservative ideology that supplants any notion of merit-based academic research.
You know, Marjorie's question assumed that after there had been no collaborative decision-making, that there might have been. Is there any reason to believe, I hope there is, but I don't know it, that before MIT and Brown and Virginia and a bunch of other schools, the so-called good actors, as they were described by the administration incorrectly, I guess, before they just said no to the Trump administration, that there was some level of coordination, or was it just Sally Kornbluth at MIT said no, and then the dominoes started to fall after her?
I think there is some evidence that there is some kind of back channel discussion happening amongst peers. Now, whether these are official or not, I think the evidence is unclear. There was a meeting, as you probably know from reporting, that took place about a week ago. Actually, it was just this past Friday, of several schools discussing this compact. And that, at least according to news reporting, is a first. So there is a collective action problem that we've talked about, and there is the classic problem of who goes first, a kind of prisoner's dilemma for these various institutions. But I think there is some evidence that there is some conversation among peers.
So what do you think the consequence is? I mean, you can answer this in two ways. One, what's the consequence for the individual school that has had the audacity to say no to these intolerable conditions proposed by the Trump administration? And two, stepping back, does this trickle out to the much of the rest of the academic community, or is it just a behavior that will affect the individual institutions that take the action, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the first answer is that the consequence for any individual institution will be another attack on their federal grants. So some have seen that money flow again and have those funds restored. We could reasonably anticipate that in the coming days and weeks, various agencies within the Trump administration will announce that they are no longer accepting either new grants or they're taking away previously committed money. That's the pattern. And so I don't see why we wouldn't expect that to be the punishment going forward. As for the message to the larger higher education marketplace, I mean, we have to remember that we've been talking about selective private institutions on this show, particularly because of Harvard's outsized influence. But most of the best colleges and universities, even selective ones, are also public. And they have already been decimated in a lot of cases. Indiana University, for example, a place that I taught for several years, based on state legislative behavior. They don't need the Trump administration to send out a compact for so-called academic excellence. Their own red state legislators are doing the work in this respect.
So the president of Princeton wrote a piece basically saying that Princeton, right when kids get there, their first semester, he talks to them about free speech rights on campus. I think the point was, correct me if I'm wrong, that this idea that we're all just a bunch of trashers at universities of everything that is at all conservative. I think he was saying that is not true. I could be wrong.
I thought he was saying that we're not, there aren't a bunch of snowflakes, that students actually do want to engage with others who have different opinions.
He was absolutely saying that too. And I'm not sure if this is true anymore. When I was cruelly rejected by Princeton, one of the first classes to admit, I've never gotten over it, to admit women. When I visited, this was a long time ago.
So she only went to Stanford, just to be clear.
But I was cruelly rejected. I thought of Princeton then, and this is a long time ago, as a more conservative school, more Southern, more kind of genteel with all those eating clubs with the Oriental rugs. I still think of it that way. Princeton and Dartmouth being a little bit more conservative. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, what about your president's talk, and are these schools a little bit more mixed than, say, Columbia?
Well, listen, I think that there are two factors here that are playing out in terms of the dynamics of these various elite universities. Princeton most certainly has been long known for being the most conservative, pro-Southern, genteel Ivy.
Yeah.
And so I think that reputation is part of the campus. I like to say that places that often are trying to move past their past may be a little bit more strategic and intentional about the work they need to do to change. That was my experience at Indiana University, where the state had been a kind of hotbed of Klan activity in the 1920s. A Black woman had been killed in a neighboring town in the late 1960s. And I'd never lived in a place as white or as state as conservative as Indiana until I went there in the early 2000s. And I can just tell you that experience, similar to Princeton, feels like a campus that is trying to overcome a past.
Yeah.
The problem with Harvard and Columbia is that they are sort of surrounded by the sort of liberal bastions of an urban campus. They don't have these histories to overcome. And so there's a lot of sense that they are better than they actually are. And so in the case of Chris Eisgruber, I'm told, and I'm experiencing—
Princeton president, for those who don't know. I'm sorry.
Yes, Princeton president Chris Eisgruber, that he is a free speech absolutist. And in this moment, his commitment to being a free speech absolutist means that the principles are clear. We will not allow the government in any way, shape, or form, either through bribery or coercion, to dictate how people think on this campus. And everyone will have a fair shot at communicating their ideas and opinions in a civil manner. It's pretty straightforward, but that is not the case at Harvard, period.
Why not? I mean, how do you see it at Harvard?
Well, for one example, when I was there, the former president, Claudine Gay, issued a statement, essentially a blanket statement saying to say from the river to the sea, it should be discouraged. I mean, that was in a particular context, but it is representative of a difference in presidential leadership in that moment compared to Chris Eisgruber, who was leading at the time. Larry Summers, for example, very famously opposed the BDS movement. But the BDS movement is a legitimate place for students and faculty to raise questions about financial and economic pressure on a state actor for whose policies they disagree with. But Larry Summers, not according to him, anti-Semitic, you can't do it. At Harvard, there is some question as to whether you can support the academic teaching of settler colonialism as potentially being definitionally anti-Semitic. All of these things are current and present on that campus right now.
By the way, for those who don't know, BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, for those. Before we go, if you think I've been looking at you oddly
We're
today.
just going to break, Jim. You're not cutting me off.
No, but I want to say this.
You have to raise some money,
I look at
Khalil.
you so totally differently than I used to. I read a story last night about you in some Princeton organ, and I assumed it was a typo. But they said this guy started his career either wanting to be or was an accountant.
Yes.
That's you?
That's me. I am guilty as charged. I wanted to be even more than that. I wanted to work at Goldman Sachs. I am.
Maybe we're not coming back for another segment.
So how did you change?
Well, Rodney King was beaten nearly to an inch of his life. And like so many of my kids' generation, it was a kind of Trayvon Martin moment.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of questions about the country I lived in and the country I was coming of age in.
I feel better. Okay, thank you.
We'll be right back. We're talking with Khalil Gibran Muhammad, former accountant, now a professor of African American Studies and Public Affairs at Princeton. We're going to keep talking with him right after this quick break. He's also at Harvard at the Ash Center. You're listening to Marjorie Egan and Jim Braude. Right back.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Braude, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, I'm going to read some of these nice comments that people send, Jim. Laura from Acton is apologizing. She says, I'm sorry it took me so long to contribute.
That's a good one. That's a
good
great one.
And then we have...
These are people who left comments after they were kind enough to make a contribution.
Then we have Kathy and John from Bedford who say, our donation is in honor of Marjorie, Jim, and all the staff at Boston Public Radio. And we do have a great staff who help keep us sane, says Kathy and John. Well, reasonably sane through these challenging times. We rely on the standards of integrity and clear free speech held onto by GBH. We also love all your guests. So those are very really nice remarks that people send. Yeah, it makes us feel good that that you like the show and you're listening. So because we have no more money from the government, we are depending even more on the generosity of people that do listen to us to support this operation here, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And again, we have this great thank you gift, Jim, as you'd like to say today, and it is a wine tasting with Rick Steves. The 6 bottles of wine arrive at your house. They're not full bottles, but they're half bottles. Arrive at your house, 3 red, 3 white, a couple of days before the event, which is February 26th, Thursday night at 8 o'clock. And then you go on a Zoom thing with Rick Steves, and you talk about wine and mostly about his travels all around. He's an expert. Travel guy.
Also knows a lot about wine.
Knows a lot about wine, knows about traveling, and he's very uplifting to talk to. So that's the deal today, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
You know, if you listen to Rick once a month when he's with us, he's one of the great storytellers
he's great.
Of all time. And this is I think it's the third wine tasting thing he is doing, and we read a contribution remark from someone a few minutes ago. She's going to her third that's Sue from Beverly is the one who said that they're great. And as I said before, they're also a great gift. So you can buy it for yourself if you want, your partner. You can buy it for your kid, assuming your kid is old enough to drink. For friends, it's a great Christmas gift. Marjorie said a great Valentine's Day gift. You do it by going to 888-897-9424. gbhnews.org. Again, Thursday, February 26th, 8 p.m., wine delivered to your house. And we did one. The wine was spectacular. It was
great. It was really fun.
Really, really great.
Yeah.
And you get Rick Steves, as I say, who's a wonderful man to spend an evening with. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to BPR on 89.7 GBH. Marjorie Egan, Jim Braude. We're continuing our conversation with Khalil Gibran Muhammad, professor of African American Studies and Public Affairs at Princeton.
So we're seeing the Trump administration basically try to wipe out DEI programs all over the place at colleges. Pete Hegseth, who runs the Pentagon, he used to be in favor of DEI programs when he was at Harvard. He's changed his mind. He's trying to get rid of them too. What impact are you seeing?
Well, we are seeing, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics, over the course of the spring, and I guess their most recent report estimates that Black women's unemployment is now 6.7%, or it then was 6.7%. The nation's average is 4.3%, and they're estimating at least 300,000 Black women have lost their job between the public sector and the private sector. We shouldn't be surprised at this because we have seen Donald Trump very explicitly direct his Lisa Cook, federal governor of the Federal Reserve, as well as Letitia James, who's now subject to an indictment by this administration. But more particularly, many of his executive orders share in common the underlying notion that the federal government has been engaging in anti-white discrimination. And the solution to anti-white discrimination is to get rid of high-profile Black people, men and women, and replace them with white people, which is what this administration has done.
Did you mention, I don't think you did, I was just, my headphones went off for 1 second, that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, before all of its changes, did an analysis of the top 98 senior people nominated by the Trump administration who needed Senate confirmation, and 2 of the 98 were Black people. Obviously, 96 were not. 2% more than a little lower than the percentage of Blacks in this. I mean, it's nothing surprising there, is there? Or?
It's not surprising. I mean, it's just shocking in its reversal. I mean, the one thing that we can say for the Biden administration is that by contrast to both Trump 1 and Trump 2.0, the Biden administration had the largest percentage of cabinet level or Senate confirmed appointments to his administration, outpacing even Barack Obama in the first 200 days of his administration. So this is in part a reaction to it on steroids.
You know, I hope people, I've mentioned this more than once, and so my apologies to people who are sick of me saying it, but I was so affected by it. I had never seen Nicole Hannah-Jones speak before until several Friday, 1619 Project, obviously, till maybe a month ago, and there's this great program that Larry Ta, used to be at the Globe, does for health journalists around the world, and I was at the Friday night dinner doing a little thing with them, and one of the speakers was Nicole, plus the editor of the Times Magazine where she works. And the final question was from a reporter from the Washington Post, because it was a pretty she was terrific, but it was really sort of a downbeat conversation. And a reporter from the Washington Post said, well, can you end on one up note? What hope do you have? And it was a long, and she had laid out some of the things you just laid out, Khalil, in terms of what's going on in this administration. And she paused for a long time and she said, I don't have any. And she proceeded to say that Trump is undone, and I forget the percentage. It was something like 70% of the civil rights legislation he has gutted that took 60 years to get in a mere, at that point, I think it was 7 or 8 months. And I can imagine, she said, 60 to 70 years until we get back to where we were before Trump was elected. Do you share her, I don't even like to use the word pessimism, but I guess it fits, about how setback we've been in this incredibly short period of Trump 2.0?
Yes. I mean, in the main, I think that all of us need to be crystal clear about what's happened, what the goals are, and the danger that we face with respect to both militarization of our nation and what we see happening with the National Guard in our city streets, the absolute purge and loyalty tests that are being imposed across all of civil society. And of course, we started this conversation with higher education. So I think that Nicole Hannah-Jones is absolutely right. It took a long time to get to a point where the law was on our side, but it took even longer to get institutions to behave as if the law was on our side.
Well, you know, you're at Harvard and you're at Princeton, obviously interacting with a lot of young people. What do you hear? What do you hear from these young kids of color who 2 years ago were in a different world, and now this?
Well, they weren't 2 years ago in a different world because Trump represented the Republican Party, the state legislative activity in terms of anti-CRT, anti-DI. We have to keep remembering that most of our lives are governed by local and state law.
Yeah.
And as outrageous and as crazy and as dangerous and threatening the Trump administration's behavior is, 2 years ago and 4 years ago, many of my students, I won't call it a plurality, but I have a surprisingly large number of students from Florida in my undergraduate class, and many others are from red states. And so they have come from states that have already done much of what the Trump administration is trying to do at the national level.
Yep.
And to some degree, what I am impressed by is how clear-eyed they are. They are not mealy-mouthed. They understand and see precisely what is happening. Do they have the solution for any of us adults? Absolutely not. But they are not convinced that somehow they need to delude themselves into magical thinking that what this fascist takeover is anything but that.
So if we have seen the decimation, the gutting of, and obviously we had a discussion the other day about what remains of the Voting Rights Act in terms of redistricting, and the conventional wisdom for court watchers is the majority will get rid of that provision too, which, by the way, there's not nearly enough understanding. People think the impact will be in the one seat that's being contested, but should they rule like they did, the likelihood is good that many states that created districts based on some level of racial balance, particularly red states, are going to revisit those things, which means even fewer, even less diversity of representation. If this all happened in 8 months, what's your sense of where Trump goes on these issues in the next 3 years and a quarter?
Well, I think he's going to run out of runway with respect to retooling the Constitution to serve his ends. And by that, I mean that either the court will push back eventually and draw a line, and then we will have, the feared moment when the Supreme Court, which has no military, will start issuing contempt orders, and then we'll see what happens. I think we're getting closer to that moment, certainly within the next 18 months, based on the way the courts work. I think, additionally, the No King's March does suggest to us that resistance is growing. 5 million to 7 million estimated between the 1st in June and the 2nd in October is momentum. And I think it is getting harder for people who have stood on the sidelines and who are still convincing themselves that somehow the underlying problem of wokeness run amok in America justifies all of this, are starting to lose sleep at night. The most negative way or cynical view of this whole situation is to say, how many Americans are willing to literally destroy the country in the name of keeping Black people and women and Latino people from competing fairly in our society? That's what we're really talking about here. That is the core basis for Trump's emergence as the birther candidate and for the MAGA movement. And I think that people are going to have to decide sooner rather than later that they're not willing to destroy this country to achieve that goal.
We're glad you changed professions. Let me just say, I know I speak for Marjorie.
I could have called you about my taxes a couple of weeks ago. I
don't think he would have done your taxes, Marjorie. We really enjoy talking to you, despite the content. Be well.
All right.
You too.
We've been speaking with Khalil Gibran Muhammad. He's a professor of African American Studies and Public Affairs at Princeton and a non-resident senior fellow with the Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation at Harvard's Kennedy School. He joins us every month. Coming up after this pledge break, we're going to open the lines to get your thoughts on what happens when you herkle-durkle on a Saturday. That's kind of like when you kind of hang in bed forever.
Longer than you're supposed to.
Yeah, that's herkling-durkling. If you do it a little bit too long, is there a limit to the benefits of a do-nothing attitude? We'll hear what you have to say about rest, relaxation, quieting the mind. Do you think it's a good idea, or do you feel guilty? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Okay, I'm going to give you the numbers again. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. I'm sorry to keep repeating myself about Rick Steves, but I think it's such a great thank you gift. Because he's such a wonderful guy, and every time I listen to him, my mood is improved. I feel much less depressed about the state of affairs. He just is an uplifting kind of guy. So you will, if you get this, if you support this gift, it's $12.50 a month. We'll give you a ticket. It's a virtual wine tasting. You get 6 bottles of wine, French wine that is, enough for 2 people, delivered to your door. You sit in your home with your significant other, and you will enjoy those bottles of wine while doing a Zoom call with Rick Steves.
By the way, can I just interrupt you and say, it doesn't have to just be with your partner. 6 of these small bottles of wine is a lot of wine.
You can drink the whole thing yourself.
No, I meant you can invite other people
guzzle
over.
It right down.
No, you can invite other people. You can have a party around this thing.
Well, that's right. You could have a party around this thing. That's a great idea, Jim.
Well, thank you.
And it's a great gift for Christmas or for Valentine's Day, since it does take place February 26th. That is a gift of $12 a month. And the reason we like to do these sustainer memberships, as they say, is so we can plan for the year ahead, which is not going to be an easy one, since the federal government, Donald Trump doesn't like public radio or public TV, so he's taken away our funding. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. We are, what day is today? Monday?
Monday.
We're not at the library. We're not tomorrow. We are Wednesday. Wednesday, we're going to be there. Sorry.
One more day here.
Wednesday, we will be at the library and hope that will continue. We started the show with protests, so we decided to end today with a little rest and relaxation and the inevitable anxiety that seems to come with it for a lot of us. It's safe to say we all crave a lazy day, correct? I assume so.
That's
Even
right.
just a few hours to do absolutely nothing. We've talked about the benefits of, as Marty said, Herkel-Dirkling. That's in Scotland, by the way. That's where they come from. When you lay in bed for a few extra minutes in the morning before you get up, luxuriating in the soft comfort longer than you ordinarily would. But the New York Times asked, quote, how much unstructured time can we comfortably abide? After one writer found herself gifted the unicorn of an entire day with nothing on the schedule, no laundry, no social engagements, no cooking for the family, nothing. She welcomed the blessing for about 45 minutes before the anxiety started kicking in. A lot of us can relate. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970 to call or text. Has anyone out there successfully navigated an entire day of, let's call it sloth, without descending into self-loathing? And is downtime actually good for you? I'm going to read some science to you in a minute where they say it is. It's a line between a chore and a relaxing activity, like baking. One of these people says, give us a call, Boston Public Relaxation Time, 877-301-8970. By the way, this is totally coincidence because I hadn't read the New York Times story all this morning. Mm-hmm. One of my weekend days, I did exactly this. I watched 4 episodes of Slow Horses, which is the Gary Oldman detective thing.
Oh, people said that's really good.
It's spectacular.
Is it very violent?
It's a little violent, but not hard.
Oh,
you could handle it.
But I could handle it.
It's not horribly violent. I did a little cooking, but not for a meal, which would violate the notion. I just cook because it's fun, because, you know, I find it to be a relaxing activity. And I have to admit, I felt only modestly guilty as the day went along, but it was really, what's the word, rejuvenating in a way. It wasn't even my intent until I was about an hour into the day and I hadn't done anything. And I said, no one was around. Family wasn't around. It was just me. And it was exhilarating. It was absolutely, I didn't text you, so you didn't have to respond.
No, I didn't hear from
Isn't
you
that
all
weird?
weekend.
I know. Well, actually, you did. I texted you during the rally, but you just didn't respond.
Oh,
but in any case, it's incredible.
I thought something had happened to you.
Do you ever spend a day just doing nothing?
Well, you know, last week we were talking about how people don't party anymore. They don't invite people over. So this weekend I had several people come up for the weekend to go to the rally with me. I was covering it for us, but they came as like regular people. And so I didn't get much accomplished. I felt mildly guilty about it. Yeah, I did feel guilty about it.
But that's not a nothing
way
thing.
Behind on everything in my life, and I felt like I'm even more behind now. So that's a problem. But I can see where if you're not way behind in everything in your life, yeah, it would be great. I did watch a lot of Diane Keaton movies. I watched Baby Boom, which I didn't, or was it Baby Bust? That wasn't so good, except you did see.
How many hours did you do that?
Well, Annie Hall, which I watched twice, is only an hour and a half long. It's twice. And my God, if you haven't seen that in a while, I know Woody Allen did some very bad things.
It's one of the best movies ever made.
But it's one of the, it is, I mean, when they do the list of best movies ever made, it's right up at the top. But I know it's brilliant. Every scene is perfect. The Baby Bus thing wasn't so great. However, you did see Sam Shepard before he got his teeth fixed.
Okay.
Baby Boom. Thank you very much. Baby Boom. It wasn't so good. It was okay. But I guess you
I don't know what she's talking about either.
Sam Shepard was in Baby Boom.
Okay, fine.
But he hadn't had his teeth fixed yet.
Oh, that's really sad. Okay, so the anonymous texter says, when I think of relaxing and calm, I think of Jim Browdy. Sure. By the way, it is not my typical self. I've sort of fell into it. I didn't start today. I didn't wake up saying, I'm going to take a day where I do absolutely nothing. I would say until early evening, I did absolutely nothing, which was fabulous. Listen to Roz and Dedham. My absolute favorite days are the rare days where I don't leave the bed or the couch. A day full of binge watching TV and movies and family naps with my dog and husband. Throw in a whole bunch of terrible for you snacks, and it's the most rejuvenating day you can have. I haven't done this in ages, and it really is rejuvenating. It's terrific. 877-301-8970. Let's start in New Hampshire with Caroline. Hi, Caroline. Hi.
So anytime I have free time, I'm a crafter.
Yeah.
So anytime I have some free time, I'm picking up my knitting. I'm going to my weaving loom. I'm working with beads. There's always something that I'm waiting to get back to.
Huh. Now, do you consider crafting to be wasting time? It's not wasting time, though, right? It's a hobby. So you're making things.
It's a hobby.
Yeah.
I do make things.
Huh. So
weaving, I have big looms. I make things like baby blankets and scarves and dish towels and stuff like that.
So, Caroline, if you're just sitting around on the couch, you're not knitting, you're not with your beads, you're not with your habit, you're just a hobby rather. You're just sitting around on the couch watching TV. Does that make you feel guilty?
No, not usually. No, if we're sitting on the couch, my husband wants to watch Star Trek.
By the way, you don't have to say, I think you're missing the point of this thing. What she was doing with the weaving and everything is exactly what we're talking about.
It is?
Exactly. She's not doing it.
I don't consider that
She's not
being
doing
lazy.
it for work. You're doing it because it brings you joy, right, Caroline?
Absolutely.
Okay,
I have an entire room full of weaving looms, and I love to spend my time over there.
That's exactly what we're talking about. Caroline, I'm going to try to explain this to Marjorie. Thank you very much for the call. Anonymous texter, you should answer this question. Does nursing a hangover count as a day off? What is the answer to that question?
I don't know. I haven't had a hangover in 50 years.
Is that really true?
No, I don't
that's
get
incredible.
I mean, Jim likes to portray me as a lush.
No, I didn't say you were lush. I didn't say everybody's had a hangover every once in a while. Andrea in New Hampshire says...
Have you had a hangover? You drink 2 sips of beer and pass out.
Every time I have 2 sips of beer, I have a hangover. As a matter of fact, I work a very stressful job, says Andrea in New Hampshire. Manage the house. I live for the Sunday nap. My family knows this is no contact time. I used to feel guilty. Now I know it's self-care. It has changed my perspective on Sundays. I no longer dread them because Monday is coming. That is exactly what we're talking about.
That's a good one.
How much you love a good nap, by the way?
I love naps.
Oh, my God.
I'm a power napper. I nap for like a half hour.
No, but why don't you just do it open-ended? You just lie down there, you do the nap thing, and when you wake up, you wake up.
Because I think I feel guilty that I haven't gotten up to do my schoolwork. I know. Not my schoolwork. My
You're not
work.
in school. You know you're not in school
I know,
anymore,
but
right?
it's homework. I have to read my homework.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
877-301-8970 is the number.
Mary says, not guilty if you're reading a good book. And then my secret small boat sailing, says Teddy from Providence. I like to disappear on the bay, unreachable, and at the whim of the wind and the waves, forced to slow down and travel at the speed that nature beckons you. Wow. He also runs a cafe called Public House in Lincoln.
Wow.
Is that Lincoln, Rhode Island, or Lincoln, Massachusetts?
Well, text us back. Do you meditate?
I do.
So
every morning.
Isn't that this thing? Of course, it's for a finite period of time.
I think that's so I won't have a complete nervous breakdown.
How are you not nervous when you're meditating? If you know you got to rush to work afterwards, how do you do that?
Because it changes my day. I'm a little nervous as it is, and I'm less nervous if I do that.
Is that why you don't return my text during the meditation? Why don't you?
I turn my phone off.
Wow.
Remember
we had JB Smoove on the show?
Yes.
I have to say, I'm rarely in awe of a guest. I was so excited when we had him on. He's Leon from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Here's Leon leading, I guess you could call it, it's Frozen. Well, okay. That's the way it works here.
Now, here's Teresa from
okay.
Bellrica, soon to be Haverhill. She says, I think it's all about balance. I'm purging, packing, painting, and getting ready to move, so I can't relax until I'm in my new house. But I miss binge watching 2 to 3 episodes of BGBS. I don't know what that is.
Either. Read Jill's text in the Comrex there.
In all seriousness, I'm truly happy to hear you did this, Jim, and glad you enjoyed it and found it rejuvenating. Hope you'll do it again sometime, maybe forever.
I don't think that's a friendly text. I'm not 100% sure.
No.
Okay, fine. 877-301-8970. Whoops. I was about to call Izzy, who disappeared.
That's interesting, too, because sometimes I feel guilty if I am reading for too long. I should be doing something else.
Why?
Because I'm reading a book for pleasure.
How many days have you ever been? This is your job, right?
This is my job.
How many other jobs do you have? This one, right?
I have this one.
Okay. How many days are you unprepared for the show? Never, right?
Many.
No, that is BS.
Yeah, sometimes I'm in a panic in the morning.
Okay, but most days you're prepared, right?
Most days I am
So
prepared.
why do you feel guilt-ridden? Why can't you have the pleasure?
I'm a guilty person. I don't know why I am.
Do you know that I read a little science on this morning about these days where you do nothing?
Yeah.
They boost your creativity.
Yeah.
They help with your relationships. I don't have the sourcing for this. And it leads to less burnout. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that we should all try it. It's difficult. I think it's difficult for lots of people. And I'm sure somebody's going to tell us pretty soon it's difficult for them. We seem to have too many healthy people listening to us on the radio right now.
Listen to this anonymous texter. It's not Herkel-Durkel for this person. For hours on end, looking at phone or computer. It's called bed rotting, which is really exactly what it is. Looking at your phone causes anxiety, and it doesn't count, kind of thing. But I had the perfect day. I took a nap. I watched 4 episodes. You know what's great about Slow Horses beyond how great it is? It's short. The episodes range from 40 to 45 minutes. Hour's too long, don't you think?
Is it episode? What season are you in?
Current season, season 5.
Season 5?
5,
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
That's pretty impressive,
That's
huh?
daunting to think about having to make up, catch up 5 seasons.
No, you don't have to. The seasons stand on their own, I would argue.
Okay.
877-301-8970. We're talking about taking, was this a New York Times story? Where was this story? We're talking about lazing around for a day, doing absolutely nothing and trying not to feel guilty.
Before we go to the break.
What is it?
I recently took a vacation to New York City. The first day there, we woke up, got bagels, napped for 2 hours, ate a bagel, napped another 2 hours, went to a Fish concert, and we were all in bed by midnight. It was the best day of my life.
That's exactly it.
Says Chelsea in Portsmouth.
That's exactly it.
Okay, we're talking about whether you feel lazy if you just goof off all day long, if you loaf around too much, if you experience self-loathing and terrible guilt, or if you think it's swell. 877-301-8970 is the number to call or text. You're listening to BPR on GBH.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference, but please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
I'm going to say quickly this time, because I've talked about it probably too much, but for $12.50 a month this time around, you get a virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves, who is just very fun and uplifting to talk to. The wine gets delivered to your house, and it's swell. Thursday, February 26th at 8 p.m. But I just want to remind people, because I think it really matters, if we didn't have these occasional pledge breaks, especially now when the government has taken away our funding, we would have to do something different like commercial radio does, which is have all these commercials, which are horrible. So this is what we do instead of those horrible commercials that we do not subject you to every day like commercial radio does. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Can you put back on the screen, you guys? There was a great text from somebody who gave over the weekend. That was a good one. If you could restore that in a second there. And it's a $12.50 a month, $150 all at once. I'll say for the 19th time, but I actually totally believe this is one of the great gifts to give. It's great for you, your family, your partner and you, whoever it is. But what's even better is to give it to somebody. What a fabulous gift to spend an hour plus, it's probably more than an hour, with Rick Steves, telling stories, talking about wine, about which he knows a lot, learning things. I mean, it can't get much better than that. And unfortunately, I don't know who this is from, so I'm really sorry. I love your show. Appreciate all that I learned from listening to it. I donated this weekend while I remembered to do it, but your show was on my mind when I did so. Signed, a daily listener that is an accountant. Please don't don't hold that against me. You're both wonderful, a perfect mix of entertaining and educational. That really,
That's
I can't
very
tell
nice.
you how good that makes us feel.
I love
so
accountants. I just didn't think of Khalil as an accountant. Did you?
Well, no, he's not an accountant.
He was.
He was, but he's not. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. There are only a couple days left in this thing, so we're reaching sort of the critical point. If you haven't given so far and you intend to give, and I assume everybody, if you can afford it, intends to give because you're listening and you know that this is a tough time for public broadcasting in general, and to get Rick Steves in return live on Thursday, February 26th at 8 p.m. really doesn't get much better. So 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Yeah, and the Rick Steves gift is just for today. So if you're interested in that, and as Jim said before, you don't have to be sitting there with your significant other. You could have a bunch of friends over, little sips of the wine that we supply, and then a little extra from your house.
Pick up somebody at the bar. Bring them home.
You could pick up someone at the bar.
Seriously.
That's right.
6 fabulous small bottles of wine. Each
Get to
one
know
enough
your
for 2.
neighbors. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
What am I doing? Oh, the number is 877-301-8970. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. We're talking about just lazing. Is lazing a verb?
Lazing around.
Lazing around for a whole day.
I don't know if that's a verb.
Whatever it is. You know what my point is. And trying not to feel guilty. We do have the sound, shockingly. It's working. Here's sound from this is a guided meditation run by Leon, the great J.B. Smoove, on Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I don't got to tell you how to breathe. That shit is involuntary. Picture yourself walking alone in a meadow. A stream flows by. Damn, streams are sexy. Carrying away your worries and all your fears. While your eyes are closed, you don't see the reality. And you in your mama's basement. On that stupid-ass, dirty-ass couch.
I think he's one of the funniest people
He's very funny.
Has ever lived.
Listen to this.
What?
I had a lazy day yesterday. I read the Sunday papers. Does anybody even do that anymore? I watched the Patriots game. I took a nap. I had cereal for dinner, all while in my pajamas. I felt fantastic, says Sharon from Peacock. That was a pretty good one.
Can I tell you something? That is an excellent point. Part of my day that was this rare day for me when I actually did nothing, comfort food. I should have said this exactly like that person says, is a really critical part of the day. I made beef stew in the crock pot the day before. Oh, wow. And that is really incredible. And you just, what are you're mocking me? Is that what you're doing here?
No, I like beef stew in the crock pot.
Sally in Roslindale says they're playing your theme music loudly in the lobby of 53 State Street, downtown Boston.
Why are they doing
that? And it's freaking, well, I assume it has nothing to do with us. I assume they're just playing that
Here's another
thing.
good one. I used to be kind of high-strung, 3 kids, stay-at-home dad, and freelancer. I used to get stressed if I wasn't doing something task-related. I have since taken sage advice not to give a you-know-what. It's very hard, but I've gotten good at it, and it's very important when lazing about. Tuning out is very good. And then somebody else reminds me that I should not feel guilty for reading for pleasure. If you are gaining mental health, spiritual connect, even a trashy romance novel, and knowledge, it's food for the soul. Never feel guilty, says Seth from Rhode Island. So there you go. I shouldn't feel guilty about it. But I think a lot of us do feel guilty about it. And here's another anonymous texter. I wake up between 4 and 5. I spend every single morning having coffee in bed and doing all the New York Times puzzles. That's Wordle and Spelling Bee and the mini crossword. I don't get up until 8 or 9. Wow, that person must be retired.
You didn't read the most important part, capital letters.
Not 1 ounce of guilt.
4 hours in bed? I mean, can you imagine that?
No, but I know a lot of people who are obsessed with those crossword puzzles. And the Times, my daughter doesn't.
It's not just crossword puzzles. There's tons of different kinds of puzzles.
Yeah, but they just did this great thing where you can get one subscription, then all your whole family. And my daughter doesn't work there anymore, so I'm not pumping the Times for her behalf.
Okay, can we take one call here? I mean, we're not even talking.
Yes, I just want to finish this story.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
They just did this thing where you get one subscription, and then the family can share their Wordles and their spelling bees. So
between
each other, so it doesn't ruin it. So
is it among each other? Or
it's
between
among.
each other?
It's among the several members of the family. Okay, Paul in Hingham, thank you for calling.
Sorry we didn't get to you earlier, Paul. Hi.
Hi,
Hi. Thanks for
Sure.
the topic, of course. I just wanted to absolve Marjorie of her guilt for reading for pleasure, because people who read become a little more thoughtful and sensitive. A lot of things don't bother me anymore. I notice I'm a lot more tolerant of Jim's comments and his, his shortcomings and, occasional egotism. And I just think, well, there goes Jim again. But if I'm not reading, then those things really start to get to me, Marjorie.
That's one of the most beautiful calls we've ever had,
point.
actually, Paul.
I'm going to have to start reading a lot more, Paul. There's no question about it.
That's a good one, Paul. Thank you for the, I knew that would amuse you. Is he your best friend or something?
He's my best friend.
Show's over.
Okay. It is?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Now this works?
No,
it's rather odd.
Well, it's pledge. I was caught by surprise. Yeah. I'm sorry because we didn't get to all the calls and all the texts, and there were a lot of good ones.
Too much.
Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in to another edition of Boston Public Radio. We have some breaking news here, which is we are actually going to be back at the library, not tomorrow, but we'll be there on Wednesday. Wow, I'm impressed. Okay, keep up with us 24/7 by our podcast, or check us out on our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. We'll be here tomorrow in Brighton, but back at the library, as I said, on Wednesday. But we are streaming at the Newsfeed Cafe at the library if you want to catch the show in community with others. Our guest tomorrow, CNN's John, in community with others. That's what we're supposed to be now, Jim, in community with others.
That's true.
Okay, CNN's John King. We're going to talk to him about Washington, of course. Frontline's Michael Kirk has a devastating Frontline on the RFK Jr. It's a documentary. It's going to be on TV tomorrow night. We're going to preview it with him. The Milk Streets.
By the way, did you use the word devastating? I watched this weekend.
Devastating.
You think RFK Jr. is a menace? You don't know nothing. You have to watch this film. This is it's real. Another Michael Kirk masterpiece.
He's got your vaccine stuff in his hands. Thank God people are ignoring him in many cases. Milk Street's Chris Kimball on his latest cookbook, Folks from the Animal Rescue League of Boston, about affordable pet health care amid rising costs. That's going to be a great one.
That's huge.
Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Mira Donaldson, Brad Lewis ran our YouTube stream, our engineer John LaClaw. Thank you so much to everybody today. The Culture Show with Jared Bowen starts immediately after what happened to Jared today? We missed him too. Anyway, but he's
Pledge. That's why
he's going to be here nonetheless right after we're done and Pledge is done in 89.7 GBH. Jim Brady, thank you very much.
It's rather loose, it's rather disjointed, this whole, would you agree that, no offense, of course, it's rather, whatever. I am Jim Brown.
I am Marjorie Egan. Thank you for tuning in.
We are clear
Have
on.
a great day.
Goodbye.
Hope you can tune in tomorrow. Bye.
See you tomorrow.
Now that federal funding for public media has been eliminated, we are asking you to stand with GBH during this difficult time by giving what you can. Listener support has always been the most important source of funding, but it's never been more critical than right now. So please start a monthly sustaining membership or increase your current giving during our fall membership drive at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424. I'm Maeve Buckley, and I'm joined by Sonia Lee.
And good afternoon. We had a great last hour of Boston Public Radio. We made that goal. Right now, we are looking to hear from 15 more contributions, looking to hear from 15 more people as we wrap up BPR. If this is appointment listening and Jim and Marjorie are part of your weekday routine and you couldn't imagine getting on with your lunch and your day without them, then we ask you to please make a contribution. Just 15 people, and wrapping up this hour successfully. We have about 6 minutes to go. gbhnews.org. You can call 888-897-9424.
And when you support GBH right now, we would love to say thank you with a ticket to a virtual wine tasting with expert traveler and author Rick Steves and a professional sommelier. It's been very popular so far today. This is a very special offer only for this membership drive. Your ticket includes 6 small bottles of wine, plenty for 2 people to share, shipped right to your door. The tasting is going to be on Thursday, February 26th, beginning at 8 o'clock, online and in your home. Don't miss this evening of discovery and delight, where you're sure to learn something new about the wonderful world of French wine and more about Rick and his adventures, too. Sign up as a sustaining member at $12.50 per month, or give $150 all at once. Now, the deadline to secure your ticket during this membership drive is coming up at 7 o'clock this evening, but you're listening right now. Support your Boston Boston Public Radio listening and ask for the ticket for the wine tasting with Rick Steves as our thanks. 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
And that sustaining membership is really the best way to support GBH. That monthly commitment sends a powerful message about the importance of having GBH on the air in Boston. And with the loss of our federal funding, that consistent source of revenue means we can keep you informed without having to live pledge drive to pledge drive. Sign up as a sustaining member. You can do that $12.50 a month at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424. Already a sustaining member, maybe you want to increase that gift by just $2.50. You can do that too, and maybe pick up that wine event, and you can do that at 888-897-9424.
Thank you so much if you've made your gift of support. We heard from Marianne in Tingsboro. Said she never misses Jim and Marjorie, loves the topics and guests, both political and fun. They keep me up to date and sane. Thank you so much, Marianne. We also heard from a friend in Long Beach, California, who gave and said, absolutely love Jim and Marjorie. I relocated to Los Angeles 10 years ago, but I listen each morning and I feel I've never left home. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. You can join them, be one of the now 10 more people we're looking to hear from. 10 people. That's what's left in our goal here in these next about 4 minutes. We can do it, but we need to hear from you. 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Jimmy Kimmel pulled off the air billion-dollar defamation suits against the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. The defunding of public media all are examples of how President Trump is trying to suppress free speech. These actions are a wake-up call that our Bill of Rights should never be taken for granted. At this crucial moment, we ask you to help shore up our right to a free press by supporting GBH rights. Accountable. And you can join in, support your Boston Public Radio listening. Stand up for a free press. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And you want to support organizations that need your money and will use it to make a positive difference in your community and in the world. Well, GBH checks all the boxes. Listener support is the most important part of our operating budget. No one must pay to listen to GBH. That's how public radio works. So when you give voluntarily, you are giving thousands of listeners access to the fact-based and thoughtful journalism we all need. If you can give, please do so. All it takes is $5 or $10 or $15 per month, whatever works best for you. 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
And do support the station at $12.50 a month and secure your ticket to the virtual wine event with Rick Steves. This is going to be a fabulous time. And if you want to support Boston Public Radio and be sure to get your ticket, this is the time to do it. You only have a couple minutes left. You're going to get 6 small bottles of wine shipped to your door, enough for 2 people to share. And the tasting is Thursday, February 22nd. We're going to send you a Zoom link, all the information online in the home. You don't have to drive, and a lovely, lovely assortment of French wines. You can get the ticket at gbhnews.org. That's $12.50 a month or a one-time gift of $150. 888-897-9424.
Hey, thank you so much to Sally in Jackson, New Hampshire, and also to Judy in Salem, getting us that much closer to reaching our goal. We are down to just 7 more people we're looking to hear from. We got a couple minutes left to go in this hour. We need to hear from you. If you have yet to support your listening here, now is the perfect time to do so. Help us reach this goal. It keeps us on track for our overall goal in this fall membership drive. Again, 7 more people left to hear from in the next couple of minutes to wrap this up. 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
And a big thank you to Fan in Chelmsford. Says excellent news, trustworthy. We love Marjorie and Jim, thoroughly entertaining and informative. And now down to just 3 more people? Can we get 3 more fans of Jim and Marjorie to give here? And just as we wrap up this next 90 seconds or so, you can give online. That's gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424. And we made that goal. Thank you so much.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And UMass Lowell, ranked #1 best value public university in Massachusetts by the Wall Street Journal and U.S. News and World Report. Learn more at uml.edu/rankings. And Rocky Ruggiero, making art and history come to life, offering travel programs to Italy, online education and webinars, and in-person cultural events throughout the U.S. Learn more at rockyruggiero.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.